Chapter 1886. Ning Shu had mixed feelings about the bird. He pinched it and made it shit out of itself. Ning Shu felt that he was bullying a retard, but he didn't want to argue with it. Ning Shu grabbed Firebird and threw it into the sea. Firebird was so scared that it cried. It quickly flew up and landed on Ning Shu's shoulder. Ning Shu face-bombed. What a retard. Ning Shu let out a long breath. He managed to escape this time because he took advantage of the situation. The gods wouldn't care about a puny human. Who would care about an ant that would delay their business, especially when it came to the replacement of the God King? Now that Zeus had lost his power, he definitely couldn't be the God King. As for who would be the God King, it would probably cause a ruckus for a while. This would give her enough time to do whatever she wanted. Even if the God King was elected to deal with her, she would definitely be stronger than she was now. She was just a puny human. How could she have the power to kill Athena and Poseidon? It was impossible for her to destroy Zeus's weapon. If there was a new God King, Ning Shu hoped that Hera would become the God King. The culture of a society was related to the person in power. If a woman became the God King, then the status of women would increase. Medusa was beheaded, which marked the decline of women's rights. Originally, Gaia was born from chaos. At that time, women's status was still very high, but it eventually developed into a patriarchal society. The result of this development was that when female politicians in the West were running for election, Medusa's head was cut off by Perseus. He carried the head and used it to attack women. In a patriarchal society, women who were imprisoned for thousands of years became the embodiment of demons. Even if they had personalities, they were labeled with negative things. For example, Hera was jealous, Medea was cruel, Zeus was dead, and Pandora was given disaster. Men could have all kinds of personalities. A woman's beauty didn't belong to her, and her viciousness was forced. She was not above anyone, even if she was a woman. She was gentle and lovely, and would not be manipulated by men. She had her own aesthetic experience and personality. She was an independent creature that was different from men. Ning Shu hoped that Hera would become the divine king. Hera had a lot of prestige among the gods, so it would be best if she was treated like a fart. Ning Shu ate 2 fruits and drank some water before returning to the beach. Looking at the chest of gold coins and gems, he patted the chest. He could now travel the world. At the same time, he would also pay attention to which god had become the God King. Before the deity king was elected, she would be safe. Even if Zeus had told him the truth, he still had to find her. Grow bigger and get ready to leave this place, Ning Shu said to the Firebird. Firebird tilted her head and looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu was speechless. Oh fuck. His IQ was his weakness. Fortunately, Ning Shu persuaded the Firebird to understand. It seemed that refining the wisdom pill was imminent. It was so tiring to communicate with a companion that he couldn't communicate with every day. Ning Shu carried the chest and jumped onto the Firebird's back. Then, he took out a pen and wrote down the cultivation method of the peerless martial arts. He also wrote down all kinds of charms. Most importantly, he wrote down charms that could resist curses. The layers of sheepskin were filled with charms and cultivation methods. The sheepskin could be preserved for a long time, and the ink was magical. After all, it wouldn't fall off. This thing could be preserved for a long time. When he was almost done, Ning Shu lay on the back and slept. It was so relaxing. While sleeping, he let his body circulate the peerless martial arts and absorb spiritual energy. The Firebird flew freely. It didn't matter where it flew, as long as it could land. When Ning Shu woke up, the Firebird was still flying. It was already very tired from flapping its wings. As it flew, it descended, then flapped its wings and flew up again. As it flew, it descended again, then flapped its wings and flew up again. Ning Shu was speechless. I was wondering why it was still flying on the sea. It turned out that it was moving up and down. It didn't fly much at all. Ning Shu saw that the little Firebird was indeed tired. Then he released the spirit dragon. The Firebird became smaller and flew to Ning Shu's shoulder. It squatted down. It was so tired. Ning Shu continued to write charms. Even if those gods came to find trouble, he would have enough power to protect himself. When he was free, he would swallow all kinds of energy and constantly compress the thin needles. The thin needles were a great killing weapon. They also had tyrannical power. Most importantly, they were small enough and could be used for sneak attacks. Now, he could condense them skillfully. Ning Shu pursued quantity. Thinking about it, the sky was densely packed with thin needles. Even if he faced the gods, he wouldn't be afraid. The premise was that he could control such a large number of thin needles. They wouldn't explode before hitting the target. Ning Shu gradually increased the number. From 5 to 8, and then to 10. It was a little difficult to compress the 4 kinds of energy and control so many needles. If he didn't pay attention, Ning Shu would explode himself. He had to run very fast. After flying on the sea for a few days, he finally saw land. Ning Shu didn't know where this place was. In any case, he could go anywhere. It would be best if he could find the world source energy. He was still 3 types of world source energy. It would be good to find one in this world. Even if it was a duplicate, he could sell it. Ning Shu stepped on the ground and felt a sense of steadiness. This was a small fishing village. This fishing village was very poor. But now, social development was slow. Everywhere was desolate. It was a gift from the heavens to be able to fill his stomach. Ning Shu found lodging. In the end, he stayed in a family with only a grandmother and her granddaughter. The old lady was very old. Her hair was already white. Her granddaughter was 14 years old. She was managing a fishing net made of hemp rope. The family was very poor. But in any case, they treated Ning Shu to fish soup. Ning Shu drank the tasteless fish soup. He felt that it was very good. He didn't even have fish soup to drink while floating on the sea. This little girl had honey-colored skin. She was often exposed to the sea breeze. Her skin was a little dry. She was an ordinary girl from a fishing village. After drinking the fish soup, Ning Shu rested here for a night. He planned to leave the next day. She couldn't stay in one place for long. She had to pay for the room. Ning Shu gave the little girl a gold coin. The little girl had never seen a gold coin. This fishing village was self-sufficient. They didn't want to sell their things. Moreover, if they wanted to sell things, the town was very far from here. They didn't know what would happen on the way. However, Ning Shu felt that giving her a gold coin was a little too much. Who would rob a lonely granddaughter? Ning Shu simply gave her some pills and said that she could eat them if she was sick. He took back the gold coin. Ning Shu covered his face. He stepped on the giant dragon head and flew away. It was better to leave. This was only a temporary place to land. Chapter 1887. And Ning Shu clearly felt that the men and women in the fishing village were looking at him strangely. The men were drooling, while the women were wary and pulled back the men beside them. Sometimes, being beautiful was a kind of trouble. Ning Shu stood on the Qijin dragon and flew for a while. Then he turned around and flew back to the fishing village. As expected, he saw a group of people surrounding the door. They were probably asking for something from them. Fortunately, she took back the gold coin. Ning Shu turned the bird on his shoulder into a huge bird. It was covered in fire and covered the sun all day long. Its cries were deafening. Ning Shu pointed his finger and the ocean began to roar. It formed a huge wave that was about to drown the entire village. I just stayed for a night. Why should I ask for something from them? I didn't give them anything. It was human nature to bully the weak and fear the strong. This pair of grandmother and granddaughter were women. They were weak and had no one to rely on. The stupid people immediately knelt down and begged for the gods' forgiveness. Ning Shu said indifferently, "I don't know when I'll come back. If I find out that you killed them," Ning Shu said that and flew away on the back of the firebird. The firebird chirped and flapped its wings as it flew away. Only those who were in awe wouldn't dare to act recklessly. Ning Shu decided to find a place to rest in the future. Her face was really eye-catching. At least in this environment, her beauty wasn't a good thing. Ning Shu sat on the back of the firebird and started to cultivate. The firebird flew for a while and started to move up and down. It couldn't fly anymore. Ning Shu felt that it should lose weight. Ning Shu put his hand on the back of the firebird and injected some spiritual energy. Only then did the firebird become more energetic. What a waste! Ning Shu would stop in places with mountains and rivers to see if there were any herbs to refine the wisdom pill. It would be best if there were some treasures. To be honest, Ning Shu still wanted to go to Mount Olympus. There must be some treasures on the mountain, but there were many gods living there. He would be walking into a trap. Barging in like this was just courting death. Ning Shu gathered the herbs and released her spiritual force to scan the land around her to see if there were any herbs. Some worlds had herbs, and some didn't. If they didn't have herbs, this bird could only be an idiot. Without intelligence, such a large body and strength would attract a lot of attention. He definitely wouldn't have the freedom to be a little bird. Now that she thought about it, she was the one who had harmed this silly bird. Ning Shu face-bombed. Ning Shu wandered around and found two kinds of ingredients. He guessed that no one recognized these things. They were a bit old, and the older they were, the better the medicinal effects. After finding one or two, the rest would be easy to find. At least this world had natural treasures. Ning Shu put away the heavenly materials and earthly treasures he found and went to other places. Ning Shu wanted to find a large city-state. There would be a temple in a large city-state. With a temple, she would be able to know the current situation of the gods and who had become the divine king. How was Zeus now? Was he still alive? Zeus had overthrown his father's tyrannical rule and imprisoned him at the bottom of the earth. Zeus had become the divine king with great authority. Therefore, the previous great demon king was either locked up or dead and turned into something in the world, such as the canopy. He wondered how Zeus was now. The struggle for kingship was very cruel. Ning Shu collected the ingredients for the wisdom pill along the way as she headed towards the big city-states. Finally, she stood in front of one of the city-states. The walls of this city-state were quite tall. Ning Shu had to raise her head to see it. It was a magnificent sight. There were soldiers at the gate. Ning Shu walked in with a veil around her face. She bought some food with gold coins and ate while heading to the temple. This city-state worshipped the fire god Hephaestus. No wonder the walls of this city-state were so high and the buildings were so majestic. The fire god Hephaestus was the god of masonry, the god of carving, and the god of blacksmithing. He was one of the 12 Olympian gods. Fire god's temple was more like a blacksmith's shop than a temple. The female robot made of gold could speak and do all kinds of difficult work. The fire god Hephaestus was the son of the queen of heaven Hera. However, according to legend, the fire god was born with a lame leg and an ugly face. However, his soul and wisdom were very outstanding. He was smart and full of passion. He was also a poor child. When he was born, he was too weak and sickly. His mother, Hera, despised him and threw him off Mount Olympus to get rid of the awkward situation of having such a poor son. He fell into the sea and was saved by a female deity in the sea. She raised him and even opened a blacksmith shop. Later, he was reunited with his mother. Although he was ugly and crippled, he had a beautiful wife, Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty and love, or Venus. However, appearance was a universal thing. A beautiful wife would inevitably be cuckolded. If you wanted to live a good life, you had to be cuckolded. The fire god was a skilled craftsman. He always made beautiful and delicate objects for his wife. However, Venus, the goddess of love, still cheated on him with her brother. The fire god was bitter. The ugliest and most dull man on Mount Olympus turned out to be the most beautiful and romantic goddess in the world, Venus, who was in charge of love and marriage. There were no roses in the world, but because of the birth of Venus, there were roses that represented love and beauty. This was a kind of excessive luck. A blacksmith wearing a precious rose was destined to be a blessing in disguise. In fact, the most famous story about Hephaestus was the luxuriant canopy that his beautiful wife put on his head. Of course, he chose to forgive her. In fact, the couple parted on bad terms. Vienna gave birth to Cupid, the god of love. Cupid's golden and lead arrows were all made by the fire god. Ning Shu and his followers worshipped the statue of the fire god. He asked the priest, "How are the gods now? I came from the city of Athens. I heard that something happened. The goddess of victory, Athena, was killed by the god king." The priest could communicate with the gods. When he heard Ning Shu's words, he said, Don't talk about the gods. It's not our place to talk about them. Ning Shu could only give up. He stayed in the city and went out to look for herbs when he had nothing to do. When he found all the ingredients to make the wisdom pill, he made 5 wisdom pills for the bird. He stuffed all of them into its mouth. If its IQ was low, he could make up for it with pills. After Ning Shu stuffed the pills into its mouth, the fire bird's body swayed. It was about to fall asleep. It snuggled into Ning Shu's chest. Ning Shu caught the bird and threw it to the ground. He didn't know if it was a male or female, but it kept snuggling into his chest. After being thrown to the ground by Ning Shu, the fire bird fell asleep. Its body was probably digesting the effects of the wisdom pill. Chapter 1888. Ning Shu went to the Earth God's temple every day. Every time he went, he would pray and ask the priest questions. Until now, there was still no news. Could it be that the gods had not decided who would become the God King? As long as the God King was decided, the fire god would return. The fire god usually did not live in Olympus. When he was young, he was thrown down from the sacred mountain by his own mother. After returning to the sacred mountain, when his mother rebelled against Zeus with the sea goddess Athena, he made a rope. When his mother was hung up, he pleaded with Zeus for mercy. In the end, Zeus kicked his mother down the sacred mountain and crippled her leg. Therefore, the fire god basically did not return to the divine mountain. Ning Shu waited and waited until the flowers withered. She reckoned that the Mount Olympus was not peaceful at all. The longer she waited, the more time she would have to face the dangers in the future calmly. Now, Ning Shu could control hundreds of thin needles. His next goal was to double his strength and control more than 200 thin needles. He could attack groups, but if he could not, in a one-on-one fight, he could imagine hundreds of thin needles piercing his opponent. The explosive power would be enough to blow them into powder. Atomic bombs were just SOS. The more the better. Not only in this world, but in other worlds as well, this was a great killing weapon. When he was free, he would pick a bunch of flowers and send them to the fire god's temple and put them in front of the statue to express his goodwill. Ning Shu did not want to meet gods and kill gods. There was no need to make enemies and make enemies all over the world. After a long time, Ning Shu became familiar with the priest of the temple. The priest's position seemed very honorable, but he had to give his all. Ning Shu would occasionally ask the priest when the fire god would return. The priest would only whisper that the divine mountain was not peaceful and that the fire god would need some time to return. Ning Shu wanted to know who the God King was and who he was, but as time passed, Ning Shu did not care who the God King was. She was an ant on the ground. To those high and mighty gods, she was an ant that was not worth mentioning. She was trembling with fear. Ning Shu had been cultivating all this time. Her dantian was getting bigger and bigger as she absorbed the spiritual energy, the power of the fire sun, the power of thunder, and the power of the stars. Not to mention the profoundness of the human body, the dantian was like the universe, and the human body was like a small universe. Even a single cell was like a world. Ning Shu had been cultivating all this time, but his dantian had not burst. As his cultivation deepened, Ning Shu compressed more and more thin needles. Now, there were more than 500 of them. If he released all of them, there would be so many of them that he would suffer from trypophobia. I will take you there. A smile appeared on Ning Shu's face. Really? My brother has been talking about you. The only thing he wants is for me to bring you to him. Are you willing to go to the God Mountain? Ning Shu knew he couldn't refuse. Plus, he wanted to go to the God Mountain. Zeus was still a scourge. He had to deal with Zeus. Ning Shu said excitedly, "Are you really going to take me to the God Mountain? Can the God of Fire God give me a God fruit? You know that a woman's face is the most important thing. But with age, nothing can beat time. Is there a fruit that can preserve one's youth forever?" Hera was speechless. What a stupid and shallow woman. Although a woman's face was important, to a god, she was just a toy. For example, although she was a goddess and a god, she was just a toy for a god. Hera got on the chariot and looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu carefully got on the chariot. He looked surprised. "This is my first time riding a god's chariot." Aren't you going to ask me why I am taking you to the God Mountain? Ning Shu asked. Ning Shu didn't care. He said, Aren't you taking me to see the God King? Ning Shu knew, but he didn't show it. Chapter 1889. Now that Hera was the God King, Zeus had been tricked by her. He couldn't take it lying down, so Hera had come. Hera was a woman who could even abandon her own son. Ning Shu, a human woman, was nothing. However, Hera's actions paled in comparison to some male gods who would devour their lovers and sons at the drop of a hat. For example, Zeus's grandfather was afraid of his wife and wanted her to have more children. However, he was afraid that he would lose his position if he had too many children. Thus, he held back his pregnancy and forbade it. What he had done was simply astonishing. Since Zeus wanted a human woman, it didn't matter at all. Even Hera used this method to humiliate Zeus. Since you're lustful, I'll give you a woman. However, you can only be locked up in Tartarus, which is deeper than hell. Even the immortal gods were afraid of this vast, dark region. This was where Nyx's palace was located, surrounded by black clouds. Zeus's enemies were locked up behind a bronze wall. The entrance was locked by a huge bronze door, which was the masterpiece of the god of fire, Hephaestus. Now, Zeus was locked up there with the Titans and Zeus's enemies. It was awesome. Hera's chariot flew quickly. Ning Shu was amazed and yearned for a better life. Hera's mouth twitched. This place was deeper than hell, a place that even the gods feared. A human woman in such a bottomless place would only be filled with endless fear. Ning Shu propped up her chin and asked Hera, The God King must have mentioned me often. Hera glanced at Ning Shu. Yes, often. He said you killed Athena and Poseidon, and that you have the power of the god of destruction. Ning Shu heard this and laughed. Zeus has always said such things. Whatever he says, it's the truth. Hera narrowed her eyes. Do you really have the power of the god of destruction? I've lived with my brother for such a long time. I can tell whether she's telling the truth or not. Ning Shu nodded. Actually, I have some power. This power was actually given to me by Zeus. Previously, the sea goddess had taken a fancy to my beauty and wanted to take advantage of me. Fortunately, Zeus was there, and because he was afraid that something would happen again, he gave me some power. It's only enough to protect myself, and it's not much power. Hera pondered. Could it be that Zeus's perverted younger brother killed Poseidon because he wanted to compete with Poseidon for her beauty? Or was it because Zeus had always wanted to kill Poseidon, and because Poseidon was too ambitious, Zeus took this opportunity to kill him? However, Poseidon's trident was not easy to deal with. If the two of them clashed, it would be a landslide. Hera had many thoughts running through her mind. She looked at the superficial woman and stopped thinking about it. She was just a human girl. How could she not cause any trouble after being sent to prison? Now, my brother is no longer the God King. I'm the God King now, Hera said majestically. Ning Shu smiled and said, Congratulations on becoming the God King. Hera raised her heroic eyebrows. She could feel the sincerity in Ning Shu's tone. Shouldn't you feel sorry for my brother? What's there to feel sorry for? Zeus is Zeus. Without the God King position, he's still Zeus. There's no difference. Ning Shu did not care. It was not up to her to decide who became the God King, and she did not want to care. As long as Zeus was not the God King, it was fine. Hera glanced at Ning Shu and did not say anything. Soon, they arrived at Mount Olympus. From afar, Mount Olympus looked like a sacred and steep mountain. It was majestic, towering among the mountains of Greece. Mount Olympus was surrounded by clouds all year round. 2/3 of the year, it was covered in snow, and its highest peak pierced the clouds. The mountain slopes were covered with oak, chestnut, beech, sycamore, and pine trees. The scenery was very beautiful. In winter, the mountain peaks were covered in snow. In summer, the valleys were covered in trees. Every day, when the sun rose in the east, the first ray of light shone on the peak of this sacred mountain. When the sun set and the moon rose in the east, the glorious peak of Mount Olympus was bathed in the setting sun. Above the sea of clouds was a colonnade. In front of the colonnade was a garden with exotic flowers and plants. The gods living on Mount Olympus created the Olympic Games. Zeus, the god of gods, defeated Cronus in wrestling. Apollo defeated Ares in boxing and surpassed Hermes in running. The Greeks would wear laurel crowns for each winner of a competition. The winners with laurel crowns were worshipped as gods. The most famous poets would dedicate hymns to them. Ning Shu stopped in front of a vast hall. He got off the chariot and looked at the towering pillars. There were also rabbits running in the forest. They were very cute. Ning Shu asked, "Where's Zeus?" "My little brother, he's in another place right now. Once he's there, you'll be able to be with him forever." Hera sat on the divine throne, looking incomparably dignified. Ning Shu grinned. "Okay, let me see Zeus. I'll take good care of him." Hera was speechless. "Silly woman. What's going on between you and my brother?" Her brother gritted his teeth at the mention of this woman. He looked like he had a deep hatred for her. He didn't look like someone who would sleep next to her. Zeus prided himself on being a playboy. When it came to the women sleeping next to him, he treated them with kindness and authority. But it was rare for him to hate such a woman. "He's just so annoying." Ning Shu waved his hand and smiled. "No matter what Zeus does, I believe that he's doing it for my own good. It's also for the sake of us being together." Hera was speechless. "Idiot. Since you want to go, let's go." Hera pulled Ning Shu deep into the ground. This place was very deep. The distance between the ground and the sky was the same as the distance between the ground and Tartaros. In fact, if a bronze anvil fell from the sky, it would take 10 days to reach the ground. Then it would take another 10 days to reach Tartaros. Ning Shu took out a buckwheat biscuit from his bag and munched on it. They were in free fall anyway. He didn't know when they would reach. Ning Shu's foolishness made Hera look at him. He was really stupid. He wasn't afraid at all. He was a fool who didn't know anything. How could he trust her and Zeus so much? Wouldn't he do anything to her? "Do you want some?" Ning Shu handed the biscuit to Hera. Hera refused. Gods didn't eat things from the human world. Hera no longer paid any attention to Ning Shu. After this meeting, she would never see this woman again. Her bones had already melted deep into the ground. Ning Shu munched on the biscuit and drank some water. He said to Hera, "Can you give me a fruit of eternal youth?" Hera was speechless. Chapter 1890. Hera brought Ning Shu to a bronze door. She opened it and entered a palace. It was dark all around. Ning Shu's eyes took a while to adjust to the darkness. Everything was foggy, and there was the sound of wind. It was very rhythmic. It wasn't the sound of wind, but the sound of breathing. There were 3 titans sleeping here. "Brother, I'm here to see you." As Hera spoke, there was the sound of chains rattling. Ning Shu saw that Zeus' hands and feet were chained up. Even his abdomen was chained up. Zeus' hair was disheveled and he was in a sorry state. When he saw Hera, he was very excited. When he saw Ning Shu next to her, he became even more violent. If it weren't for the chains holding him back, he would have pounced on Ning Shu. He looked like he wanted to eat Ning Shu alive. Ning Shu hid behind Hera and asked fearfully, "Why is Zeus a prisoner?" Hera turned around and smiled. "He's not the God King anymore. Is he still going to live on Mount Olympus?" Ning Shu looked like he'd been struck by lightning. He was dumbfounded. "Am I going to accompany Zeus here?" "Huh." Hera snorted. When Zeus saw Ning Shu's dead body, he was so angry that he rushed over. The chains rattled as he pulled. "Hera, kill this woman. Listen to me. Kill this woman. Don't let this woman live." Ning Shu immediately said, "Don't pretend at this point. It's no use pretending to be hostile." Ning Shu then said to Hera, "I don't know him." Hera was elegant and cold. "It's too late to say that now," she said indifferently. Hera said to Zeus, "You're lonely here. Since you've been talking about her, I brought her here to accompany you." Zeus was shocked. He wanted Hera to kill this woman. He couldn't let her threaten God, but she brought her here. He was tied up and was this woman's punching bag. Why did his sister hate him so much? Ning Shu's expression was unsightly as she said to Hera, "Seeing as we're both women, Could it be that you have the heart to see a beautiful woman like me buried in such a dark place? And you won't even give me the divine fruit of eternal youth? Hera replied, I'm doing you a favor. I'm giving my husband to you. Are you touched? Ning Shu was speechless. Thank you for your kindness. If it's possible, I want to have sex with you. Ning Shu was about to cry. Hera walked in front of Zeus and patted him on the shoulder, gently dusting it off. Little brother, I know you can't lack women by your side. Now that I've brought you a woman to accompany you, consider her as your elder sister. Now that I'm the divine king, I have to manage the gods, so I don't have much time to visit you. Consider this woman to accompany you in my place. Ning Shu was speechless. Elder sister, are you sure you're not purposely stabbing your little brother's heart? The corner of Zeus's mouth twitched. His golden hair was disheveled, and he looked very miserable. He no longer had the grace of the divine king. He no longer had the power and authority to rule the world. Much of his charm had been taken away. Elder sister, if you don't kill this woman, you'll regret it. You'll definitely regret it. Zeus was panting heavily as he spoke through gritted teeth. If he left this woman here, his life would be in danger. Don't worry, little brother, she'll always be by your side. If worse comes to worst, I'll grant her eternal life so she can accompany you forever. How about that? Hera looked like a loving and tolerant wife. Ning Shu waved his hand. Don't grant me eternal life. I don't want this place. I don't know him. Don't make me stay here. Seeing Ning Shu like this, Zeus groaned and almost spat out a mouthful of golden blood. What a hypocritical and pretentious woman. Don't grant her eternal life. She'll be a great enemy of the gods. Elder sister, why won't you believe me? Zeus said earnestly. Zeus was really tired, so tired that he felt like he was about to die. Most importantly, if this woman stayed here, he would be in danger. Zeus didn't want to die yet. He wanted to make a comeback. If she could kill Athena and Poseidon, she could definitely kill him while he was tied up and unarmed. Hera's actions were simply vicious, filled with jealousy and ugliness. Hera tidied up Zeus's hair. When elder sister has time, I'll come and see you. Take good care of him. Hera flicked her sleeves and left. When she left, she added more restrictions and chains to the copper door. After Hera left, Ning Shu and Zeus stared at each other. Apart from the sound of the Titan's breathing, the air was terrifyingly quiet. Zeus moved his body, and the chains that bound him suddenly rattled. Ning Shu sat on the ground and looked at the embarrassed Zeus. How did you end up like this? Who did this to you? Zeus's eyes were red, especially when he saw his enemy. Ning Shu released his psychic energy and found that Hera hadn't gone far. Why are you blaming me for everything? You said you were the most beautiful woman, and Poseidon wasn't worthy of me. Ning Shu shrugged and took out a fruit. He wiped it on his skirt and took a bite. Ning Shu found that the fruits in this world were very sweet. Even the wild fruits were juicy and sweet. It was probably because there was less pollution and more spirit chi. What nonsense are you talking about? Zeus found that he wasn't on the same track as this crazy woman. They weren't talking about the same thing. If you have the guts to do it, then you have the guts to admit it. Zeus stared at Ning Shu. You killed Poseidon and Athena. Hey, weren't you the one who killed them? Why are you pushing the blame to me? Do you have a plan to take back the throne? Fine, I killed Poseidon and Athena, Ning Shu said casually. Zeus closed his eyes. He didn't want to see this woman now. Zeus's hands were bound by chains. He had to stand like this because the chains were too short. He couldn't even sit or lie down. Can you let me out? Ning Shu asked Zeus. Shut up. Zeus suddenly opened his eyes and shouted in exasperation. Ning Shu sighed. I'm going to be buried in this dark place. Just thinking about it makes me feel bad. Zeus, crazy. Ning Shu kept talking about how beautiful he was while crying and complaining that he didn't want to stay here. Hera, who was standing in front of the bronze door, left. 39/39163/L. Chapter 1891. Once Hera left, Ning Shu couldn't be bothered to act anymore. He munched on the fruit and looked at Zeus. You look terrible now. Zeus ignored Ningshu. He felt that Hera was a Satan. She didn't listen to anything he said and even brought this woman here. They were locked in the same cell and had to face each other day and night. Hera wanted him dead. Not only did she steal the throne of the God King, she also wanted to kill him. Even if he had to find another woman to compensate, he shouldn't have found this woman. Zeus felt that he might not be able to keep his life after killing Athena and Poseidon. He didn't want to provoke Ningshu. Ningshu moved his neck, and it made cracking sounds. Zeus talked about Hera every day and said that she was a threat to the gods. He talked about threats every day and incited more gods to oppose her. The most important thing was to get rid of Zeus. Zeus looked at Ningshu warming up. He looked calm, but inside he was scared. What do you want to do? Ningshu wanted to do something, but Hera appeared again. Ningshu was speechless. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to give you a massage and massage. Ningshu reached out and squeezed Zeus's shoulder. Is it comfortable? Your arm will be crippled sooner or later. You have to keep it flowing. Zeus frowned. This woman was crazy. Hera was eavesdropping and didn't leave. Ningshu asked, Is it comfortable? What are you trying to do? Zeus didn't understand what Ningshu was trying to do. Anyway, she was a mentally ill woman. Next time when your sister comes, can you ask her for a fruit of eternal youth? Ningshu asked. Seeing that I've been taking care of you. Hera was speechless. Zeus squeezed out 2 chuckles from his throat. After Hera left, Ningshu stopped squeezing. He didn't know what Hera was trying to do. Maybe she wanted to see what her relationship with Zeus was. Rather than trusting an outsider like her, she would rather trust her own brother. After all, her brother was the one who maintained the divine system. Ningshu prepared to wander around. This place was quite big, and there were many people imprisoned here. There were Titans and Zeus's enemies. What if he accidentally released Zeus's enemies and killed Zeus? This place was very dark, and everything was hazy. He couldn't see clearly. This place was shrouded in black clouds. 2333's voice rang in Ningshu's mind. I've detected the fluctuation of the world's origin here, but it's very weak. Generally speaking, the fluctuation of the world's origin shouldn't be this weak. It's a little similar, but also a little different. But don't get your hopes up. Ningshu, oh. Knowing that this place had the world origin, Ningshu was quite happy. Although there was a certain probability that it was impossible, there was also a certain probability that it was. Ningshu asked 2333, what element do you think the world origin could be? 2333 thought for a moment and said, I don't know. The fluctuation is too weak. It might not even be the world origin. Don't get your hopes up. If you're disappointed, you'll scold me again. Ningshu, I realize that you've been playing the role of a white lotus recently. Scolding you? You're wrong. Ningshu rolled his eyes, as if he was the one who was scolded more by 2333. Okay, whatever you say is right. 2333 sneered, you're a hard person to please. Are you going to quarrel with me the moment you appear? Ningshu walked around. This place was very dark, and there were twists and turns everywhere. Ningshu felt like he was lost and couldn't return to Zeus's place. Ningshu also saw a very big Titan. The chains that bound the Titan were very big, and they were piled up like a mountain in front of her. She was snoring loudly. She wasn't wearing any clothes. She was just using a huge cloth to cover her indescribable place. Ningshu tiptoed and followed 2333's directions. The more he walked, the darker it became. Ningshu could only release his power of the will to explore bit by bit. It was so dark. Could it be the world origin of the dark element? If he could get the world origin of the dark element, this world would be very lucky. Light and dark were not as common as the 5 elements. The 5 elements were not easy to find, let alone light and dark. Ningshu talked to 2333, it's so dark. Could it be the world origin of the dark element? Maybe, but the fluctuation is too weak. It's very likely that something else is causing it to be so dark. Besides, this place is deep underground. There is no sunlight. It's normal for it to be dark. Ningshu retreated and took the burning torch in the corridor. He took the torch and rushed into the darkness. But Ning Shu didn't go far before the torch went out. It was swallowed by the darkness. It didn't go out because there was no air. Ning Shu didn't feel suffocated. If it went on like this, would she also be swallowed by the darkness? Ning Shu gritted his teeth and continued to walk. Without the torch, Ning Shu could only release his power of the will to explore the surrounding situation. But slowly, the range of his exploration was shrinking. Darkness, pure darkness swallowed Ning Shu's power of the will. Ning Shu stopped. He was in a dilemma. If he moved forward, he wouldn't be able to see, and even his power of the will would be swallowed. It was a bit dangerous to be blind and deaf. Ning Shu released his Qijin dragon to explore the way, but it didn't go far before it was swallowed by the darkness. First 10 steps, then try to turn left. 23:33 Ning Shu said, I'm following the fluctuation. Now I can only walk like this. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Ning Shu counted the steps and then began to turn left. Ning Shu was like a blind man. Raise your foot there. Let me count, 28 steps. 2,333 said. Ning Shu said, wow, that's pretty good. What do you mean? 23:33 asked. What do you mean, what do you mean? Ning Shu found that there was a gap in his communication with 23:33. It was a simple thing. I think you're mocking me. 2,333 said. Ning Shu raised his foot and stepped on the steps. I'm not mocking you. I'm sincerely praising you. 23:33 didn't deny it. Obviously, he didn't believe Ning Shu's words. After counting 23 steps, Ning Shu stopped and stretched out his foot to explore the surrounding situation. Ning Shu squatted down and touched the surroundings. Since no one saw him, he might as well crawl. His hand was full of bumps, and he touched a stone of unknown material. What you touched is a little bit of the fluctuation of the world's origin, but it doesn't seem to be the origin of the world. 2,333 said. Put it away. Ning Shu said casually. After a trip, there was at least something. 39/39163/L. Chapter 1892. Ning Shu groped around and even hit his head. He also touched something warm. He didn't know what it was, but it was soft. Fuck, could it be that I've touched a sleeping titan? But titans didn't snore like thunder. Ning Shu hurriedly stepped back and touched another stone. Take it. Ning Shu groped around and didn't find anything. Ning Shu turned around and crawled back. He fell down the steps. Where was this place? There were steps. Seeing the light, his eyes hurt. He covered his eyes for a while before he felt better. He almost blinded his titanium eyes. Returning to Zeus, Ning Shu rubbed his chin and sized up Zeus. How should he deal with Zeus? Should he just kill him or cut off his tongue? Being stared at by Ning Shu, Zeus couldn't help but open his eyes. He saw that Ning Shu's face was covered in dust. He didn't know what this woman was doing. Ning Shu vaguely heard footsteps. He scanned with his mental power. Fuck, Hera was here again. Ning Shu immediately cracked a smile and asked, Are you hungry? Do you want to eat? I have some moldy buckwheat bread in my bag. Do you want it? Psycho. Zeus said unceremoniously. Ning Shu laughed out loud. Then I'll give you a massage. Can you tell your elder sister to give me a divine fruit that can preserve my youth, and then take me away from here? I'm as beautiful as a flower. I can't wilt in this dark place where there's no daylight. Zeus chuckled. Hera opened the bronze door and walked around for a while before entering. Brother, are you all right? Sister, I only have one request. That is to kill her, Zeus said. Ning Shu said, You're so annoying. You even said you wanted to kill me. You want me to be buried with you. Can't you give me a way out? I'm alive to bring beauty to the world. My beauty illuminates the world. Ning Shu flipped his hair, causing dust to fly up. His face was the color of dirt. Hera stood to the side and said in a dignified manner, Little brother, are you not satisfied with this woman? Although she's a little silly, at least she doesn't complain and will take good care of you. Ning Shu immediately said, Yes, he's not satisfied with me. Take me away. Hera ignored Ning Shu. Little brother, are you uncomfortable here? Ning Shu felt that Hera was here to spread salt. How could Zeus be comfortable with his arm hanging? There was an ascetic monk who hung his arm up and crippled it. It's purely because I feel much better after seeing that you're not doing well. Zeus looked at his sister/wife. We're husband and wife. Why are you doing this to me? I'm magnanimous enough to let a woman accompany you. What's there to be dissatisfied about? Taras. Little brother, don't you like women the most? Ning Shu interrupted. Actually, I like women too. I came here for the divine fruit of eternal youth. I don't want the fruit anymore. Can you take me away? Stay with my little brother, Hera said. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu asked Hera, I saw a very dark place. What's that place? Don't go there. Gods will be swallowed up and then you'll get lost. Don't die. Let my little brother enjoy some tenderness. Hera smiled and left. Hera's reaction was normal. She was disappointed in her husband, especially a lecherous husband who had countless lovers and even men. Now that Hera was the divine king, there were plenty of young men. As soon as Hera left, Ning Shu sighed. There was movement in the bag. The little firebird had woken up from its slumber. Ning Shu opened the bag and looked at the bird. After eating the wisdom pill, its eyes had become much more spirited and were filled with the light of wisdom. Hey! The firebird mimicked, but its voice was very shrill. At least there was someone who could talk. Zeus looked at the firebird with an arrogant gaze. It was just a low-level creature. Hera would come here whenever she had nothing to do. Ning Shu basically knew how often Hera would come. She would only come here once in a while. Staying in this dark place, Ning Shu didn't know whether it was day or night. Ning Shu looked at Zeus. Do you want me to save you? Zeus suddenly opened its eyes and looked at Ning Shu suspiciously. You said you wanted to save me? Ning Shu nodded. He condensed a dagger in his hand and slowly walked toward Zeus. Zeus retreated, but it was chained and couldn't move at all. Ning Shu pinched Zeus' chin. Zeus tilted its head. What are you doing? You tell Hera every day that you want to kill me. I have to make you speechless, Ning Shu said indifferently. You're so vicious. Zeus stared at Ning Shu with wide eyes. Oh, according to the normal situation, I should risk my life to save you, then help you fight for the throne. You don't care about what happened before, and I'll be the woman behind a successful man. Zeus' eyes flashed. It's pretty good. What's so good about it? Tell me, what am I doing this for? First, I don't want your money. Second, I don't love you. I don't rely on you mentally. Why am I doing this? You don't rely on me financially or mentally. What's the use of you? Zeus was speechless. He knew that this woman was just playing with him. She was cold-hearted and heartless. Ning Shu released many fine needles that were as thin as cow's hair. They shot into Zeus' forehead. Zeus wanted to dodge, but he was tied up and couldn't. The great power of the needles directly destroyed Zeus' brain. Tears of blood flowed out of Zeus' eyes as he roared in pain. Zeus' divinity exploded into several pieces. Zeus' head drooped. However, Zeus was in a vegetative state now. His divinity wasn't completely destroyed. Zeus was dead, a living dead. Perhaps it would take a long time for him to wake up and repair his divinity. However, at that time, Zeus would be Zeus and not Zeus. He would be in a deep sleep just like the Titan that was locked here. The Titan was alive, but Zeus was dead. Ning Shu wanted Zeus' body to be intact. Only then would Hera be at ease. If Zeus escaped, Hera would be hunted all over the world. Ning Shu took the bird to a dark passage. He took off his shoes and threw them on the ground. He didn't take the bag or anything. He went to the bronze door and pushed it. There was no way to open it. The Vulcan's craftsmanship was damn good. Ning Shu's eyes turned invisible. He ran to the sleeping Titan and kicked it. The Titan didn't wake up. Ning Shu took the needles and exploded them. The Titan was pierced awake by the huge force. It immediately roared and stood up. It was as if the world was shaking. The huge iron chains seemed to collide with each other. The sound was deafening. He didn't believe that the Olympian gods didn't care about this place. The Titan that rebelled was locked up here. 39/39163/L. Chapter 1893. The Titan's strength couldn't be underestimated. Back then, Zeus had suppressed these rebels with great difficulty. Once there was movement, Hera would definitely react. She would open the bronze door and escape at top speed. "Who is it? Who is it that disturbed my sleep?" The Titan's voice was so loud that it could give people a concussion. The invisible Ning Shu stood in front of the bronze door. When Hera opened the door, Ning Shu hurriedly left. He had to leave this place and live a normal life. No rule could last for long, even if it was a god system. The current gods were already going downhill. This time, Hera wasn't the only one who came. There were many gods as well. As soon as the bronze door opened, Ning Shu ran away. As for the Titan, he caused a ruckus and vented for a while. Under the suppression of the gods, he had no choice but to fall into a deep sleep. Ning Shu sat on the spiritual energy dragon and flew up. After flying for a long time, he appeared on Mount Olympus. The invisible Ning Shu saw many red fruits hanging on the branches. Dewdrops streaked across the fruits. They must be delicious. Ning Shu casually plucked one, but he couldn't. The fruit was tightly stuck to the tree. Ning Shu gave up. He saw the fruit on the ground, and it was still intact. He picked it up, wiped it on his skirt, and took a bite. It was too sweet. Ning Shu hugged his skirt and picked up the fruit. There were many fruits on the ground. Ning Shu picked up a few and hurriedly left. This kind of behavior of snatching food from the tiger's mouth should stop. Ning Shu hurriedly flew away. Perhaps it was because of the movements in the underworld, no one cared about Ning Shu. Hera looked at the Titan who had suddenly awakened. She joined forces with the gods to seal the Titan again. The Titan fell unwillingly. When Hera went to check on Zeus, she found that he had lost all signs of life. Medusa wasn't here. The package was here. There were some rotten fruits and bread in the package. Where was the woman? Hera touched Zeus' face with a melancholy expression. This person wasn't only her brother, but also her husband. Hera searched everywhere for Ning Shu, and finally found Ning Shu's dirty shoes in the dark tunnel. Could that woman have been so stupid as to run here? That was a place where even gods would be devoured and lost. Could it be that he couldn't stand the loneliness and darkness here and couldn't find a way out, so he decided to take a risk? A cornered dog might jump over the wall and go in. Hera turned around and left, bringing her brother's divine body back to Mount Olympus and placing it in a crystal coffin. Hera knew that Zeus might not wake up for a long time, or he might not wake up at all. As for how Zeus died, Hera didn't really care. So what if he was a womanizer when he was alive? What woman would be by his side when he was lying in a coffin at this time? Hera touched Zeus' face in the coffin. "Brother, the tea cools down. Where are those women now? No matter how much you fear me and say that I'm jealous, it's me, the jealous woman, who's by your side. Aren't you sad? Watch me become the divine king." Ning Shu didn't know how long he had been flying. Ning Shu only stopped when he saw smoke coming out of the kitchen. He washed his face in the stream in front of the village and walked into the village. Sounds of singing could be heard in the village. The lyrics were catchy and quite interesting. It was a beautiful rural scene. The women's golden hair was tied into braids. They were beautiful and cute. It was Ning Shu's first time seeing such a peaceful atmosphere. He stood to the side and looked at the girls and customers singing on the street. Ning Shu felt like he was watching an opera. Ning Shu settled down in this town and ate fresh bread. There were beautiful flowers in the yard, and the fences of the yard were covered with morning glories and purple morning glory flowers. It was a beautiful European scene. But after staying for a while, Ning Shu left. Anyway, he was in this world. He might as well walk around. Maybe he would meet the world's origin. On the way, Ning Shu had to teach the retarded bird to talk. Now, it could basically communicate, but most of the time, Ning Shu wouldn't let it talk. This was because other religions were starting to appear and even started to kill witches. If there was a talking bird by his side, he might not be a witch, but he would definitely be seen as a weirdo. The light of God gradually disappeared. The world was so dangerous. He had to have the power to protect himself. Ning Shu continued to cultivate. He left behind what he should so that Medusa could protect him. Mission completed. Do you want to leave the mission world? 2333 Ning Shu said. Ning Shu let out a long breath. This world was really tiring for Ning Shu. Surviving in the cracks. Ning Shu didn't have to deal with them. These gods would slowly disappear. Humans were the masters. When humans awakened, God would be them. God was just something that humans relied on when they were ignorant and helpless. Even when they couldn't explain it, they used God as an explanation. Rather than saying that they were in awe of God, it was more like they were in awe of nature and the unknown. Ning Shu nodded. Let's go. Ning Shu patted the little firebird's head and didn't say anything. Ning Shu supported his head with his hand and left Medusa's beautiful body. His head shook and he appeared in the system space. Ning Shu saw 2 stones on the coffee table. They were the 2 stones that she touched. Surprisingly, one of the stones was black and the other was white. One was like granite and the other was like coal. Ning Shu picked up the 2 stones and looked at them. What were these? These are the stones with the fluctuations of the world's origin? Ning Shu asked suspiciously. One black and one white. Maybe. But they haven't matured yet. Maybe you can get someone to cover them. Cover them? You're hatching eggs. Ning Shu was speechless. That's the theory. Doesn't Mei Ziqing have a fire-type world's origin? Get him to cover it for you. To form the origin, you need the power of the origin. With the power of the origin, you can form the origin faster, 2333 said. Basically, there's a 50% chance that it's a light-type or dark-type world's origin. To maintain the balance between black and white, the chances of these 2 elements appearing at the same time are higher. Ning Shu looked at the 2 stones. 2 of them. And they were 2 origin of the world. But they hadn't matured yet. How long do you need to cover them? It wasn't good to keep them in front of Xiaohua's chest. It was too troublesome. With Mei Ziqing's protective nature, he didn't know if he would help. I don't know how long it will take. The formation of an origin of the world requires certain conditions. And the time varies. Maybe it will form immediately, or maybe it will take thousands of years, 2333 said. Ning Shu, thousands of years? That would be too late. Although he didn't know if they could hatch the origin of the world, Ning Shu was still very satisfied. At least he had gained something. Ning Shu opened the chat system and contacted Mei Ziqing. But he was told by Mei Ziqing's system that Mei Ziqing had gone to do a mission. Ning Shu secretly asked where Xiaohua was. A bold video of a child with a huge chest dripping with fragrant perspiration and large balls about to overflow. Please follow the WeChat public number EI New May 222, long press for 3 seconds to copy. Chapter 1894. Falling in Love with You, Transmigrating Canon Fodder Female Supporting Character Counterattack. The timing was not good. Mei Ziqing had gone on a mission. Where was Xiaohua? Mei Ziqing's system said, Ning Shu. Ning Shu wanted to lure Xiaohua out and stuff the 2 stones in front of his chest. Now that Mei Ziqing had forbidden him from going out, things were a little tricky. It was all Pan Chen's fault for kidnapping an ignorant child. Now, Mei Ziqing did not dare to let Xiaohua out. Ning Shu did not give up. The system replied, Ning Shu. Ning Shu checked his rewards. This mission was tiring. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27 level, Super Mission Taker Contribution Card, 147, 10 million points for 1 contribution card, Soul Value, 7 Health Value, 6 Wisdom, 9 Luck, 9 Charm, for Mental Power, 7 Martial Power, 8 Aptitude, 5 Faith, 1129,780 Merit, 592700 Soul Strength, 39 Authorization Ticket, none Law Comprehended, Water Rule Pure Heart, none Items, Calm Halo, Heart Calming Pill, Faith Halo, Amulet 4, Upgraded Amulet 2 Honorary Titles, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor Skills, 5th Ring Shooting Technique, Intermediate Close Combat Technique, Intermediate Martial Arts, Intermediate Poison Technique, Beginner Business Management Knowledge, Beginner Code Programming, Beginner Lawyer Skill, Sage Ghost Catching Skill, Beginner Cooking Skill, Intermediate Embroidery Skill. Auras, Mother of the world, Queen's blessing. Sister model worker, Qinshi's blessing. Leader aura, Grass blessing. Best friend for life, Miao Miao Miao's blessing. Healer of the dying, Zhu Su Nyang's blessing. Founding woman, Chen Ermiai's blessing. Beauty of the law, Qin Ning's blessing. Bane of the blood clan, Jasmine's blessing. Communication between races, by San Yang's blessing. Heart of the brave, Wang Ying's blessing. Fulfill the mission taker Medusa's wish, not be raped, not be cursed, escape fate. Mission completion rate, 100%. Mission reward obtained, 10-point cards, 10 attribute points, 80% of soul power, 10300 faith power, including accumulated in previous worlds, 50 merit points. It felt pretty good. 80% of the power of the soul. 80% was already the limit. Medusa had contributed a portion of her power of the soul, and she had taken 80% of it. 2333 had taken 10%, and the main system had taken 10%. 80% was not a small amount. Ning Shu added 10 attribute points and waited for Mei Ziqing's reply. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27 level, Super Mission Taker Points card, 14,710, 10 million for 1-point card. Soul value, 71 HP, 61 intelligence, 91 luck, 92 charm, 41 spiritual power, 71 combat power, 81 aptitude, 52 faith, 112978010300 merit, 59270050 soul strength, 3, 9, 10 authorization ticket, none law comprehended, water lop your heart, none items, calm halo, heart calming pill, faith halo, protective charm 4, upgraded protective charm 2 honorary titles, goddess of war, selfless ancestor skills, 5th ring shooting technique, intermediate close combat technique, intermediate martial arts, intermediate poison technique, beginner business management knowledge, beginner code programming, beginner lawyer skill, sage ghost catching skill, beginner cooking skill, intermediate embroidery skill. Auras, mother of the world, Queen's blessing, sister model worker, Qinshi's blessing, leader aura, grass blessing, lifelong friend, Miao Miao Miao's blessing. Healer of the dying, Zhu Su Nyang's blessing, founding woman, Chen Ermiai's blessing, beauty of the law, Qin Ning's blessing, bane of the blood clan, Jasmine's blessing, communication between races, by San Yang's blessing, heart of the brave, Wang Ying's blessing. Ning Shu sat cross-legged. After absorbing 80% of the power of the soul, he looked at his own soul. It had become stronger, like jelly, and even the texture of his skin had appeared. It was finally starting to strengthen his soul. The power of the soul that he had lost was slowly recovering. Ning Shu looked at the interface of the chat system. Mei Ziqing's system still hadn't replied. What was going on? Could it be that Mei Ziqing's system was paralyzed? Ning Shu looked at the 2 stones. He had to ask Little Flame for help. Otherwise, if he just threw them aside, he didn't know when they would be able to form the origin of the world. Now, he would let Little Flame act as a hen. Ning Shu wanted to see how Medusa lived after she returned. To be honest, that era was really turbulent. It wasn't easy to live. What Ning Shu didn't expect was that Medusa actually returned to live on an isolated island. She decorated her house like a fairyland, with many flowers. Firebird followed beside Medusa. One day, a man floated to the island, a handsome man. Medusa saved him, and the 2 of them seemed to be in love. They even had 2 children. However, this man couldn't stand the loneliness on the island and wanted to leave. Moreover, in the process of interacting with Medusa, he discovered that Medusa had power. The outside world was wantonly hunting down witches. Witches were the symbol of evil, and they hurt people who were cursed. Now, his wife was a witch. The man lied and said that he wanted to go home before coming back to fetch Medusa. Medusa let the man leave, but when the man returned, he brought people from the religion. Medusa directly capsized the boat and blew it up. As for her husband, Medusa killed him. Medusa raised the 2 children alone. Ning Shu was speechless. Damn this plot. Medusa killed her husband so decisively. Ning Shu was a little shocked. However, if someone threatened her, why didn't she destroy them? With the 2 children by her side, Medusa wouldn't be so lonely. He had sacrificed his soul energy and ended up in such a miserable state. He had sacrificed his soul energy for nothing. He had wasted all his strength. Ning Shu propped up his chin and looked at the beautiful Medusa. He gave her a thumbs up. Well done. Perhaps some people would say that Medusa was cruel and merciless, even killing her own husband. However, Medusa's husband also brought people from the religion. If Medusa was really arrested as a witch, what awaited her would be a tragic fate. Especially since she had 2 children, the descendants of witches would definitely be killed. At this time, why didn't the man think that this was his wife, the wife who gave birth to his children and even saved his life? Kiske, Ning Shu turned off the video. The chat system dinged. It was Mei Ziqing's system reply. That's it for reading novels. Chapter 1895. Falling in Love with You. Transmigrating canon Fodder female supporting character Counterattack. The system said that Mei Ziqing had agreed and was going to teleport Xiaohua to Water City. Ning Shu exchanged for a beautiful sachet from the exchange store. Then he placed 2 stones into the sachet. It was a beautiful sachet. Then he hung it on Xiaohua and asked him to take care of it. Of course, when asking someone for help, he had to thank them and treat them to a meal. Ning Shu explained the situation to Mei Ziqing. He didn't want Mei Ziqing to throw it away if she hung it on Xiaohua. That would be a trap. Mei Ziqing asked the system, Ning Shu. Mei Ziqing agreed, but said that if there was any danger, she could throw Ning Shu's things away. Ning Shu, it wasn't easy to find it. If she threw it away, she would fight with her. To Water City, Ning Shu Chao said to 2333. 2333 said, the people at the auction house said that they want to move out of Water City. Leave Water City. Ning Shu, oh, and? They want you to open the barrier and let them go. A city's auction house can attract a lot of customers, 2333 said. Ning Shu, oh, just say that I'm doing a mission. Don't say anything else, just lock them up for a while. You scared me by saying that you want to leave. She didn't lose anything when the auction house wasn't open. Without the auction house, there would be another business that would enter the auction house. If you don't want to do it, someone else will. Go and ask them if they're determined to leave, Ning Shu said lightly. If she left, it would be easier for her to hold a business auction and make a profit. 2333, okay. Ning Shu stood on the green flagstone of Water City and walked towards the restaurant. A fiery red Xiaohua was squatting in front of the restaurant. Ning Shu walked over and Xiaohua stood up. Auntie Ning Shu. Auntie will take you to eat something delicious. When they arrived at the restaurant, Ning Shu ordered some dishes, then took out a sachet and said to Xiaohua, Xiaohua, I want to ask you for a favor. Take a look at this and see if you can help me raise it. Xiaohua agreed without saying anything. Ning Shu said, you must carry it with you. Don't lose it. I got it. Xiaohua hung the sachet around his neck and stuffed it into his clothes. It was considered a personal item. Ning Shu couldn't help but pat Xiaohua's shoulder. You're such a good kid. Ning Shu put some food into Xiaohua's bowl. A man wearing a deep robe with wide sleeves walked over. Ning Shu cupped his hands and said, Si Tian greets the city lord. Boss Si, what's the matter? Si Tian was the boss of the casino. This guy didn't look like someone from the casino. He was gentle, unhurried, and had a broad chest. He had a very elegant temperament, like a beautiful Zhuge Liang. Si Tian specially came to find the city lord. I have something to discuss with the city lord. Si Tian said unhurriedly. Ning Shu nodded. Have a seat. Ning Shu ordered an extra pot of tea and asked, What's the matter? City lord, I heard that the people from the auction house are planning to withdraw from Water City. Si Tian poured a cup of tea. His actions were elegant. He held the cup in one hand and pinched his sleeve with the other as he took a sip of tea. Ning Shu said indifferently, Who told you that? It's just a guess. The people from the auction house probably didn't expect the city lord to be so domineering and directly seal the auction house. They must have negotiated with the city lord before, but the city lord still didn't lift the seal. In the end, they will definitely use withdrawing from Water City as a test. After all, one less city will affect your tax revenue. Ning Shu sipped his tea with an indifferent expression. Si Tian was quite smart, but this kind of thing could be seen by anyone with a discerning eye. You want to take over the auction house? Ning Shu put down the teacup and said directly. Si Tian looked at Xiaohua, who was stupidly eating, and cupped his hands. City Lord must be joking. With Si Tian's financial resources, how can I take over the auction house? Ning Shu smiled and didn't say anything. He picked up his chopsticks and placed some snacks on the plate in front of Xiaohua. Since it wasn't about the auction house, why did he specially come here? If he didn't say anything, then forget it. In any case, she wouldn't lose anything whether the auction house opened or not. She had said that she would make the auction house spit out what they owed her. Si Tian looked calm. Si Tian is willing to contribute to the prosperity of Water City. Of course I believe in your ability. The casino's strength wasn't weak. Ning Shu nodded. If the auction house really wants to withdraw from Water City, I will definitely leave a spot for you. Si Tian cupped his hands. Many thanks, City Lord. This meal is on Si Tian. Many thanks. Ning Shu didn't refuse and thanked him. Shu Bai came down from upstairs. Ning Shu bowed. City Lord. Ning Shu nodded. Sit down. Si Tian stood up and cupped his hands toward Shu Bai. Shopkeeper Shu. Sitan, did you get what you wanted? Shu Bai sat down and asked. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. So you were the one who tipped them off. Isn't this a good thing? Shu Bai fanned herself with her hand. Ning Shu nodded. It is. This matter has to be resolved. Otherwise, the merchants in Water City will be in a state of panic. However, it will take some time. The person behind the auction house hadn't appeared yet. He had already offended them by asking him to show his face. In the end, he didn't even know who the other party was. In the future, he would be targeted and confused. Now that he was riding a tiger, he had to know who the other party was. Si Tian thought for a moment and said, the person behind the auction house is Young Master Ronghua. Young Master Ronghua? What a flashy name. Ning Shu remembered this name. The people in the auction house were just probing. They wouldn't be willing to leave Water City so easily. Ning Shu ignored these people's shouts. If they had the ability, they could really leave. He wasn't afraid of such a threat at all. Unless that young Master Ronghua came looking for him. Moreover, he had to spit out the money that he didn't give him. Si Tian cupped his hands and found an excuse to leave. Ning Shu glanced at Si Tian's back and said to Shu Bai, this person is very smart. Which one of the people here isn't smart? Si Tian does things flawlessly. If he can take over the auction house, he will definitely pay you taxes. Moreover, Si Tian isn't the kind of person who likes to show off. Shu Bai said. Ning Shu nodded. He was polite and considerate. This kind of person was obviously a two-faced person with a high EQ. He's not doing missions anymore? Ning Shu asked casually. Si Tian is still doing missions. He is doing business to obtain more resources. Does he look like the kind of person who is only willing to be a small merchant? Shu Bai said reservedly and politely. He didn't look like it. That was why she asked. You seem to admire Si Tian. Ning Shu said to Shu Bai with a grin. So much for reading novels. Chapter 1896. Falling in Love with You, Transmigrating Canon Fodder Female Supporting Character Counterattacks. Since Si Tian had delivered the message and put in a good word for Si Tian, the two of them must be old acquaintances. Shu Bai looked at Ning Shu silently. I admire you. Ning Shu laughed. If the people in this auction house really leave, I will consider letting Si Tian manage it. At least Si Tian will follow the rules. Shu Bai fanned herself. Si Tian will be very happy to hear this. Ning Shu grinned and said to the confused Xiaohua, are you done eating? If you are, you can go back. Aunt Ning, can I walk around? Ziqing doesn't allow me to go out now, Xiaohua said to Ning Shu. Don't call me aunt, you know? It sounds like a concubine. Ning Shu really didn't want to hear the title, concubine. Moreover, adding concubine Ning, In front made her sound more like a concubine. "Oh, auntie." Xiaohua obediently changed the way he addressed her. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu felt that she wasn't old enough to be an auntie. "Okay, you can go anywhere you want. Ziqing is really worried about you." Mei Ziqing would probably die of exhaustion if she met such an old child. She couldn't bear to throw him away, but she would be tired if she didn't. After leaving the restaurant, Ning Shu brought Xiaohua to walk around. They bought some strange things and some ancient books from small stalls. Whatever Xiaohua took a fancy to, Ning Shu would spend money to buy it. She could be considered a tycoon now. Moreover, Xiaohua was now a mother hen. He was helping her incubate the world's origin, so she had to be more generous. She just had to coax the child more. Xiaohua didn't want to go back to the system space and wanted to stay in Ning Shu's City Lord Mansion. Ning Shu set up a barrier and let Xiaohua read in the City Lord Mansion. The City Lord Mansion's range of activity was much larger than the system space. When he passed by the auction house, he strengthened the barrier and the entire city's barrier. Ning Shu passed by the entrance of the auction house. A gust of wind blew past the entrance, blowing the fallen leaves on the ground. It looked quite desolate. Ning Shu smiled and returned to the system space. The chatting system beeped. Ning Shu sat on the sofa, hugged a pillow, and opened the chatting system. To Ning Shu's surprise, the person who sent her the message was Hongyu. Hongyu opened her mouth and asked her to remove the enchantment barrier around the auction house. She directly said that the backer of the auction house was young Master Ronghua. Although she added the word, please, but Ning Shu could still feel that Hongyu's superior aura was giving out orders. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. If you have the ability, why don't you become the City Lord of Water City? Ning Shu directly replied that this was a matter of Water City. It has nothing to do with you. Hongyu felt a little embarrassed. She had been kind enough to tell him that, but he didn't stop. In the end, he got himself into trouble and deserved it. Ning Shu threw Hongyu's matter to the back of her mind. Even if she wanted to talk about the auction house, she would let young Master Ronghua do it. No matter who said it, it was useless. Ning Shu wanted to find out what kind of person young Master Ronghua was. Hongyu had been snubbed by Ning Shu, so she was naturally unhappy. But now, Hongyu had no way to locate Ning Shu at all. She could only suppress her displeasure in her heart, but it didn't mean that there was no way to deal with it. Ning Shu ended the conversation with Hongyu and directly closed the chatting system. In the group of law incarnations, she was an unwelcome person. Except for occasionally peeking at the screen to see if something big had happened, Ning Shu didn't speak. Ning Shu scooped a little agarwood into the incense burner. The fragrance of the agarwood floated in the space, and when it was inhaled into his soul seemed to become transparent. Ning Shu sat cross-legged and closed her eyes to rest. She felt very comfortable. When she opened her eyes again, she seemed to be in high spirits and her soul was full of strength. There was also the joy that was active in her heart, and Ning Shu couldn't help but grin. Ning Shu pulled out the red rose on the coffee table. This red rose was still delicate and beautiful under the erosion of time, and the fragrance was overwhelming. This was just one flower. Who knew what kind of environment could grow such a flower? Ning Shu tapped with his finger, and a half-filled vase appeared. Ning Shu placed the rose in it. Ning Shu was really afraid that this beautiful and everlasting rose would wither in his hands. Stretching, Ning Shu's fighting spirit was high, and he said to 2333, "Let's go do a quest." "Do a system quest?" "Ning Shu, is this your catchphrase?" "Yes, I'm just asking. What if you do it?" 2333 said. Ning Shu exchanged for some fasting pills and some basic medicines. These medicines were used to reduce inflammation and reduce fever, in case of an emergency. Ning Shu's head became dizzy, and his soul began to slowly merge into a body. When she opened her eyes, she felt a piercing pain and her head was dizzy. Ning Shu sat up and rubbed her temples. She scanned her surroundings. This was a bustling palace. Smoke was coming out of the gold-plated incense burner, bringing with it a sickly sweet smell that made people feel stuffy and flustered. What kind of smell was this? This body was really tired. Ning Shu checked his pulse, and he had a slight cold. Ning Shu took 2 pills. Then he lay down and began to cultivate. The ancient realm had some spiritual energy, and he started to receive the plot. The client was called Tan Yusin, and she was the empress of the Zhou dynasty. The Tan family was a famous family, and when the current emperor was still a prince, he married Tan Yusin. It seemed that Tan Yusin was a woman who brought good fortune to her husband. Less than half a year after she married, the previous emperor passed away, and Prince Ao Tianzi succeeded to the throne. Tan Yusin successfully became the empress. Well, in any case, Tan Yusin would have plenty of wealth in this life. No matter who ascended the throne in the future, she would be the empress dowager. Tan Yusin had been married to Ao Tianzi for a year and a half, but she didn't have any children. Previously, all the concubines in the harem were also concubines. When the new emperor ascended the throne, he would definitely fill up the harem. This was also the reason why a woman was chosen in this election. This woman could be said to be Tan Yusin's nightmare. Not only Tan Yusin's nightmare, but all the women in the harem's nightmare. This woman was called Fu Min, and she was the daughter of a small official. She was lucky enough to be chosen as a concubine. However, Fu Min was a delicate woman, and she didn't care about wealth at all. She was well-read, elegant, and indifferent. She didn't fight for favor, and it seemed that she didn't want to serve the ruler of the world, Ao Tianzi. If she could choose, she would rather find someone she loved and spend the rest of her life with. She was a woman with quite a temper. Although she didn't fight for favor, she couldn't resist the emperor's love. She frequently served him in bed and rewarded him with many rare treasures. This made the women in the harem's harem become bloodshot. There was only one emperor and one man in the harem. One teapot and so many teacups. Not every concubine could be sprinkled with some sweet dew. The women in the harem tried to harm her, but they were all dealt with by the emperor. Even with the emperor's protection, there was nothing they could do. This wasn't the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing was that if the emperor wanted to dote on a woman, he was the emperor, and he had the final say. Ao Tianzi didn't want to dote on the concubines in the harem. So much for reading novels. Chapter 1897. Falling in Love with You, Transmigrating Canon Fodder Female Supporting Character Counterattack. The purest love is that I only want to sleep with you. Ao Tianzi didn't want to sleep with the women in the harem because Fu Min would be unhappy. Moreover, Ao Tianzi felt that he had found his true love, and the other women in the harem were trash. They stood in the way of him and his true love. Therefore, Ao Tianzi thought of a brilliant idea, which was to find someone to sleep with the concubines in the harem for him. He found a secret guard beside him to sleep with these concubines. Every time they slept, it was dark. These concubines didn't expect that the one sleeping with them was a secret guard who couldn't see the light. This was nothing. Ao Tianzi didn't know what he was thinking. He actually stood by the bed and watched the concubines and the secret guard. He was thinking, even I can't recognize you. You are indeed a flirtatious type. Ning Shu, who had taken the medicine, was sweating all over. It was sticky and uncomfortable. Receiving such a plot, Ning Shu was stunned. Finding someone to make a cuckold of him and watching from the side. What kind of mentality was this? These concubines were Ao Tianzi's concubines. Finding a secret guard to sleep with his concubines. Oh my God! Did this person have maggots in his brain? Ao Tianzi had to sleep with the noble ladies sent to the harem by various aristocratic families. Ao Tianzi, who had just ascended the throne, needed to appease the harem to appease the court. After dealing with this group of old officials, everything would be smooth. This way, the harem women could be dealt with. Other than Fu Min, who was personally slept with by Ao Tianzi, all the concubines in the harem, including the empress, Tan Yusin, were all served by secret guards. This was a shocking thing. The empress of a country was defiled by a scoundrel. If this matter was exposed, it would be the biggest joke. Even if Ao Tianzi abolished the empress in the future, it would be reasonable. Not only would Tan Yusin's reputation be ruined, but it would also implicate her maiden family, the Tan family, and make the world laugh. Even if the concubines in the harem were pregnant, they would inexplicably have a miscarriage. This was because the child wasn't Ao Tianzi's. Ao Tianzi naturally wouldn't leave a child that wasn't of his blood. There were concubines in the harem who got pregnant. Once they got pregnant, they had miscarriages. In any case, not a single child was born. It was Tan Yusin's responsibility to have no children in the imperial harem. Every time a concubine in the imperial harem had a miscarriage, Ao Tianzi would come and scold Tan Yusin, saying that Tan Yusin was not qualified to be the empress, causing the imperial harem to have no children. Tan Yusin's head was about to explode. Whenever a concubine was pregnant, she would tremble with fear. She had to check everything herself. She was even more nervous than when she was pregnant. In the end, she still had a miscarriage. There was a demon in the harem. Over time, Tan Yusin was crowned with the hat of jealousy. Every time a concubine in the harem got pregnant, wasn't it Tan Yusin's responsibility? Tan Yusin was a jealous woman who had harmed the emperor's son. The emperor was merciful and did not depose her. She had even implicated Tan Yusin's father, who was reprimanded by Ao Tianzi in the imperial court. Not only that, Tan Yusin also attracted the hatred of a wave of concubines in the harem. Those concubines who lost their children all blamed Tan Yusin for the loss of their children. Tan Yusin, the empress, could be said to be a target erected by Ao Tianzi to attract the attention of the women in the harem. Even if he doted on Fu Min, he did not show it. Moreover, Ao Tianzi allowed the women in the harem to fight each other. Once something happened, he would run over to reprimand Tan Yusin. In any case, the responsibility of the harem was Tan Yusin. If anything happened, it was Tan Yusin's incompetence in managing the harem. It was simply a disaster to have such a boss who deliberately made things difficult for her. Tan Yusin was under pressure every day. Her body had always been in a state of subhealth. The direct symptom was a headache. She could not stand being frightened. Even a small movement in the harem would make Tan Yusin jump in fright. After that, Fu Min successfully gave birth to a child. It was the only son in the harem. Fu Min was promoted to a concubine. Fu Min was in the quagmire of the harem. She was untainted by the mud, isolated from the world, and happy. For a man to go to this extent for you, wasn't it exciting? Wasn't it touching? Wasn't it blissful? Ao Tianzi gradually grasped power. Some of the important departments were also assigned to his own people. In the future, no matter what he said or did, there would not be a group of old officials nagging endlessly. After dealing with the matters of the court, it was time to deal with the matters of the harem. Ao Tianzi gathered a group of concubines and directly told them about the situation in the harem. Without any explanation, he chased the group of concubines into the cold palace. The concubines were all dumbfounded. They did not know why such a thing happened. When they informed their families did not respond. It was obvious that they had abandoned the women in the harem. Tan Yusin's previous jealousy and cruelty to the imperial heir was enough to make Tan Yusin, the empress, lose her virtue. Tan Yusin was deposed and sent to the harem along with a group of concubines. Fu Min stood aloof from worldly affairs. She did not care about fame and wealth. She was an untainted lotus. She told Ao Tianzi that these concubines were very pitiful in the harem. Why not send them home? The conditions in the cold palace were too harsh. All right, sending the emperor's women home had already tarnished their reputation. What was the point of sending them home? Ao Tianzi felt that his women were kind. However, the emperor's women would die in the harem even if they died. He then sent someone to inform these concubines of the truth. He said that they had lost their chastity and morality and should commit suicide. When the concubines heard the truth, it was as if they were struck by lightning. They all howled. They snatched the white silk, daggers, and poisoned wine from the eunuchs and committed suicide one after another. Tan Yusin was in despair. The most heartless of all was the imperial family. The emperor's throne was filled with corpses. She and Ao Tianzi were husband and wife. Why did he treat her like this? It even implicated her father to resign and live in seclusion to protect the entire Tan family. In this situation, she had no choice but to die. Tan Yusin took the poisoned wine and drank it with tears in her eyes. The poisoned wine burned her throat and stomach. It was extremely painful. After drinking the poisoned wine, she would not die for a while. Tan Yusen vomited blood. She vaguely saw Ao Tianze standing at the entrance of the cold palace. He was dressed in luxurious clothes and stood proudly. The emperor who controlled the fate of the world had a heart as hard as iron. It was said that when a person died, their heart was exceptionally clear. Tan Yusen suddenly understood. She vomited a large mouthful of black blood and breathed her last. The dead concubines were secretly transported out of the palace and casually buried. After that, Ao Tianze did not take in any more concubines. He made Fu Min the empress and his child the crown prince. The people sang praises of the affectionate emperor. The love between Ao Tianze and Fu Min was sung all over the world. The people set up a plaque for Fu Min, saying that she was the most benevolent and beautiful empress in the world. The women of the people all looked up to Fu Min as a role model. They wanted their husbands to strive for the goal of never taking in concubines. In short, Fu Min was a legendary woman who received the emperor's lifelong love. The concubines in the harem rotted in the mass graves and were drowned in history. There was not a single word about them. Just read a refreshing novel. Chapter 1898. Fu Min had fulfilled an ancient woman's wish to be with a man for the rest of her life. Moreover, it was an emperor. So many people had the ability to do this. This was something that ancient women could only dream of. Ao Tianze had done it for Fu Min. No one cared about the blood and tears of the concubines who relied on the man. Their living space had been squeezed to a very small extent. Whether they lived or died, it was all up to the emperor or even the man. Binding the feet was to satisfy the man's abnormal and perverted mentality. At the same time, it was to keep the woman at home. Since the woman was so stupid, then there was no need for her to go out. It could be said that women were miserable, and women were miserable. Tan Yusen's wish was to deal with Ao Tianze. Husband and wife could be incomparably loving, but they could also have deep hatred. There was no longer any relationship between husband and wife. Ning Shu rubbed his glabella. His body was especially uncomfortable. That wet and heavy feeling made him unable to lift his energy. He really wanted to wring his clothes and wring the moisture out of his body. His head was aching and he couldn't help but feel angry. Ning Shu pressed his temples heavily. What was more miserable now was that it seemed that all the concubines in the harem, except for Fu Min, had been defiled by the shadow guards, including Tan Yusen, the empress. In order to avoid being discovered, Ao Tianze never stayed overnight. She had already slept with the shadow guards. Even if it was to protect herself, she had to deal with Ao Tianze. There was no room for discussion. Fu Min and all the other women in the harem were dependent on Ao Tianze. Without Ao Tianze, Fu Min was nothing. As long as Ao Tianze didn't abolish her, she had the right to manage the harem. Fu Min had never harmed anyone. She was incomparably clean in the harem. Ao Tianze had blocked the swords and knives of the harem for her. Not everyone had the right to be clean and beautiful. Who asked it not to be true love? Ning Shu pressed his glabella until it turned red. His body was very uncomfortable. The current Tan Yusen was not even 20 years old. She had the body of a 40-year-old. The pressure was so great that it caused problems with her body. She trembled every day and was in a state of mental tension at all times. What followed was a nervous breakdown. She couldn't eat well and couldn't sleep well. She felt like she was floating all day and would ascend to immortality at any time. If he cultivated every day in this state, he would die sooner or later. Being the empress was tough. As a woman who took care of her husband's family, she couldn't be jealous. She had to be magnanimous. If anything happened, it would be the empress' responsibility. It was a thankless job. This little bit of power in his hands would be taken away by the woman that the emperor loved. His power shield was in cooldown. Fuck, my head hurts. His entire body felt uncomfortable. It was wet and uncomfortable, and his body was very wet. With a soft creak, the door opened. Her personal palace maid, Sheer, walked in. Seeing Ning Shu sit up, She hurriedly put down the basin in her hands and squeezed out a handkerchief to wipe Ning Shu's face. Nyang nyang, wipe your face to make it more refreshing. Ning Shu made a sound of acknowledgement and said to Shir, who was wiping his face, call an imperial physician over for Ben Gong. Ben Gong's body is very tired. As the empress, she couldn't run and exercise every day. She had to ensure that she was dignified, noble, and generous. If she had nowhere to vent her stress, wouldn't her body get sick? Moreover, Ning Shu realized that this was because his body was very weak and his heart was beating very fast. Nyang nyang, are you not feeling well? Shir hurriedly asked. Ning Shu, my entire body is not feeling well. It's like I'm soaking in water. Is Nyang nyang pregnant? Shir asked with a smile of exultation. Ning Shu, anyone in the harem could get pregnant, but it was unlikely for her to get pregnant. Because the pressure was too great, getting pregnant was very difficult. Moreover, being pregnant was even more painful. You might feel your belly with a happy expression, but not long after, you might fall down. With a plop, the child would be gone. Having and then losing it was an even more painful thing. Call an imperial physician. Ben Gong's body is not feeling well. Ning Shu rubbed the space between her eyebrows and mobilized the spiritual energy in her dantian to strengthen her body. Shir quickly found an imperial physician. Ning Shu stretched out her wrist to let the imperial physician take her pulse. She said, Imperial physician Li, Ben Gong has been in a daze all day and has no strength. Prescribe some medicine for Ben Gong to replenish qi and blood. Nyang nyang, you've been overthinking things and hurt your spleen and stomach. This humble subject will prescribe some medicine to be taken with the 100-flower pill. Imperial physician Li cupped his hands. Ning Shu nodded. Shir's face was tangled as she asked Imperial physician Li, Imperial physician, other than these, does Nyang Nyang have anything else? She couldn't directly ask if she was pregnant with a dragon child. The imperial concubine has suffered severe injuries. She needs to recuperate and think less, said Imperial physician Li. She was a little disappointed. It seemed that she was not pregnant. After she sent Imperial physician Li away, she came back and said to Ning Shu, Nyang Nyang. This kind of thing depends on fate. When fate comes, it will happen. This kind of thing can't be forced. If I let a secret guard fucking me again, my surname won't be Ning. What kind of mood did Ao Tianzi have when he watched his concubine having sex with her secret guard? Ning Shu's face was cold and indifferent. For a concubine to have an affair with an outsider was a crime that could lead to the extermination of the entire family. The women in the imperial harem had all been defiled by the secret guards, and they had all been schemed against by their own men. Now, Ao Tianzi was keeping a low profile and waiting for the right opportunity to get rid of all these women. Nyang, today is the first day of the month. According to the rules, His Majesty will definitely come to our palace. Shi said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu nodded. Ask the kitchen to prepare some light dishes. Something simple will do. Now, Ning Shu didn't want to eat greasy food as he wasn't feeling well. As for Ao Tianzi coming at night, Ning Shu didn't care at all. Ning Shu said to Shi, go and get the medicine. Instead of worrying about what Ao Tianzi would eat at night, it was better to have enough energy to deal with Ao Tianzi. As for Fu Min, all the pampering and love were given by men. Thunder and rain were the king's grace. To Fu Min, it was rain and dew, but to others, it was thunder and lightning. There was no other way, because glory and life were all in Ao Tianzi's hands. To deal with Ao Tianzi, Fu Min was just an ordinary woman in the imperial harem. Therefore, they focused on dealing with Ao Tianzi. Yes. She left. Ning Shu drank water and pondered. Well, she was now the empress, so she shouldn't use this method of climbing over walls to assassinate people. It wouldn't be good if she was thought to be an assassin. Besides, the spiritual energy here was still very little compared to other worlds. It was good enough that the spiritual energy here could nourish the body, but it was still difficult to climb over walls. In addition, the suppression of the plane was more serious. This was just an ordinary ancient plane. Even if there were chivalrous people, they would only have mediocre skills. Ning Shu kept rubbing his forehead. This irritating feeling made Ning Shu want to smash things. He had to nourish his body first. Embark came back with the medicine and decocted it in the palace's small kitchen. Although there were people in the imperial kitchen responsible for decocting the medicine, there were too many people. Chapter 1899. Letting the people in the imperial kitchen brew the medicine was an act of seeking death. Not only were there hundreds of concubines in the imperial harem, but there were also so many palace servants. It was as tiring as managing a large company. No wonder Tan Yusen's body became like this. Ning Shu took 100-flower pill and drank a bowl of bitter medicine. This kind of medicine couldn't be effective just by drinking a bowl. Ning Shu didn't want to be a model worker now. "Massage my back for me," Ning Shu's maid said. The maid immediately came over and massaged Ning Shu. Ning Shu closed her eyes slightly and operated a peerless martial art in her body. Compared to the enormous power in the previous world, the spiritual energy in this world was like silk threads. There was no pleasure in swallowing it in big mouthfuls. There was no feeling of turbulent seawater. The sun went down and the whole world fell into darkness. Lights were lit everywhere in the palace. After dressing up, Ning Shu stood at the door waiting for Ao Tianzi's arrival, looking like an empress. Ao Tianzi came late. Ning Shu's legs were swollen from standing too long. Ao Tianzi was wearing ordinary clothes, but his eyes were still clear and bright. He had the aura of an emperor. Ning Shu bowed to Ao Tianzi. Ao Tianzi helped Ning Shu symbolically, but their hands didn't touch. The women in the imperial harem were all enemies of Ao Tianzi. If it weren't for the stability of the court, these women would have been thrown out of the palace like trash. Ning Shu grinned and followed Ao Tianzi into the palace. Ning Shu said, "Your Majesty, dinner is ready. Please eat." Ning Shu released her spiritual energy as she spoke. She saw the shadow guards around the palace. These shadow guards couldn't be seen in public. They followed the emperor to protect his safety. Now, other than protecting the emperor and doing some shady things for the emperor, the secret guards also had a new mission, which was to visit the concubines in the harem for Ao Tianzi. He was not the emperor, but he enjoyed the treatment of an emperor. He enjoyed a harem of 3,000 beauties, all of whom were beauties of various styles. His life was worth it. He even slept with the mother of a nation. As soon as he thought of this, Ning Shu felt unhappy. Moreover, Ning Shu saw a shadow guard squatting on a tree branch with a tent underneath. "Fuck, you're really proactive." Ning Shu directly used his spiritual power to kick the shadow guard down the tree. With a plop, even the house could hear it clearly. "What's going on?" Go out and take a look," Ning Shu said hastily. Ao Tianzi's expression changed slightly as he changed the topic. He sniffed and said, "Why is there a smell of medicine?" Ning Shu said, "My body is very tired, so I asked the imperial physician to prescribe some medicine to calm my nerves. Since the empress is not feeling well, you should rest more. Don't you feel tired wearing such a grand dress?" Ao Tianzi saw Ning Shu's golden hairpin shining dazzlingly and her red clothes. On such a hot day, looking at the color made him feel even hotter. She had flaming red lips and a lot of powder on her face. Why did she still put on the airs of an empress in front of him? Wasn't she putting the cart before the horse? She was his woman first, then the empress. She was so stupid that she couldn't be saved. Ning Shu didn't seem to realize Ao Tianzi's displeasure. She said with a smile, "I have to welcome the emperor. I can't be unkempt and impolite in front of the emperor. If the person was wrong, everything would be wrong. What should Ao Tianzi say? Should he say that she was unkempt and impolite? He was inflexible and didn't know how to flirt. If he was with Fu Min, he would definitely be more comfortable than here. Needless to say, there was no need to talk about poetry. In any case, it made Ao Tianzi's heart flustered. He couldn't find a reason to be angry. Ao Tianzi smelled the faint bitter smell of medicine in the room and felt uncomfortable. He stood up and said, "Since the empress is not feeling well, you should rest well." "Is your majesty leaving?" Ning Shu asked foolishly. "Not staying for dinner? You can eat," Empress. We aren't too hungry. Ao Tianzi flung his sleeves and stepped over the threshold. Ning Shu caught up with Ao Tianzi. Your Majesty, I will send you out. Ning Shu sent Ao Tianzi to the entrance of Pepper Palace Hall and then bowed. Take care, Your Majesty. She was anxious, but as a servant, it wasn't appropriate for her to interrupt when her master was talking. You can go back, Empress. Ao Tianzi left without stopping to drink the medicine. When Ao Tianzi was some distance away from the Pepper Temple, Ning Shu released a needle as thin as a cow's hair from her sleeve. Under the shroud of darkness, the needle accurately shot into Ao Tianzi's waist under the control of Ning Shu's mental energy. Ao Tianzi suddenly felt something huge hit his waist and he fell to the ground without a care for his image. The eunuch next to Ao Tianzi was stunned and shouted sharply, Your Majesty! Ning Shu was about to turn around and return to the hall when he heard this voice. He and she looked at each other and hurriedly walked over. He said to the eunuch, Hurry up and call the imperial physician. The eunuch ran away in panic. Ning Shu used all his strength to help Ao Tianzi up. Just as he did, his hand slipped and Ao Tianzi fell to the ground again. I deserve to die, I deserve to die. Ning Shu said to the eunuch whose hands were numb, Hurry up and help me bring His Majesty into the room. Ao Tianzi sucked in a breath of cold air. He felt that his waist was already numb. What the hell? What hit him? Ao Tianzi was carried back to Ning Shu's palace hall and lay on the bed. Ao Tianzi's face was a little pale and his brows were tightly knitted. Ning Shu comforted Ao Tianzi. Your Majesty, please wait a little longer. The imperial physician will be here soon. The imperial physician was a little different from the imperial physician. The imperial physician specialized in serving the emperor. Ning Shu squeezed out a handkerchief and wiped the yellowish sweat on Ao Tianzi's face. He asked, Did Your Majesty encounter an assassin? If it was an assassin, how could there be no trace of him at all? How could he have been hit by something invisible? Soon, the imperial physician arrived with a box. Just as he was about to salute, Ao Tianzi said with a yellowish face, No need for formalities. Let me take a look? Ao Tianzi felt that his lower body was numb and he could not feel his legs anymore. The imperial physician took Ao Tianzi's pulse. The room was quiet and seemed very depressing. How is it? Ao Tianzi asked. The imperial physician lifted Ao Tianzi's clothes and looked at his waist. There were no obvious injuries, which made the imperial physician feel troubled. Your Majesty's kidney is a little weak. You need to take care of your body in the future, the imperial physician said while wiping his sweat. Something wrong with his kidney? Ao Tianzi was stunned. Men relied on their kidneys to support themselves. He rarely slept with the women in his harem. How could there be something wrong with his kidney? If there was something wrong with his kidney, why couldn't he feel his lower body? Chapter 1900. Ao Tianzi's misfortune fell from the sky. He was walking properly when he suddenly sprained his waist. Ao Tianzi decided to find an enlightened monk to perform a ritual. The news of Ao Tianzi's mishap immediately spread to all the palaces and courtyards. Some of the concubines rushed to Ning Shu's Pepper Palace Hall to see the emperor. They also wanted to make their presence known. Ning Shu didn't refuse any of them. She let all the beautiful girls in. Then, the originally spacious inner hall became a little crowded because of these girls. One by one, they blocked the side of the bed, which made Ao Tianzi extremely annoyed. Moreover, this concubine had various fragrances on her body. Her clothes were fragrant with perfume. The fragrances of perfume, and rouge all rushed into Ao Tianzi's nostrils, giving him a headache. The concubines asked about his well-being and chattered nonstop, which almost made Ao Tianzi's head explode. It was annoying to have too many women, especially when these women were after the power in his hands. He felt even more irritated. Ning Shu stood at the side with a smile. She was tolerant and magnanimous, the model of a graceful and luxurious empress. She went to Ning Shu's ear and said, Your Highness, Shuangyun Palace sent a maid to ask what happened. Ning Shu raised her eyebrows slightly. If it weren't for Fu Min's intelligence, Ao Tianze would have been annoyed by the many concubines coming over to greet him. She thought it would be better to talk to Ao Tianze alone than to fight for attention. There was no love for no reason, and no hatred for no reason. Men liked women who had a bit of a temper, but who could see the situation clearly and understand the situation. Your Highness, she asked Ning Shu, how should we reply? Ning Shu said indifferently, just say that you don't know. I'm fine. Go back to your palaces and stay there. Ao Tianze finally couldn't stand these chattering women and scolded. Your Majesty, shut up. Do you think I'm not annoyed enough? Ao Tianze asked these women to leave. Seeing Ao Tianze's dark expression, the concubines had no choice but to bow and leave. When the imperial concubines all left, Ning Shu approached the bed and asked, Emperor, how do you feel now? Ao Tianze moved his body and felt that his body was not as numb as before. However, there was a sore feeling in his waist. It didn't hurt that much anymore. It's okay. I feel much better. Ning Shu revealed a gentle smile. It's good that your Majesty is fine. Although Ning Shu's smile was beautiful, Ao Tianze didn't even look at Ning Shu. Instead, he said to the eunuch beside him, Carry me back. Sir. Ao Tianze was placed on a stretcher, and he staggered back to his bedroom. Ning Shu was still smiling as he watched Ao Tianze being carried away. She looked at Ning Shu and said, Nyang Nyang, why didn't you let His Majesty stay? Min Zhao-yi stood and bowed. His Majesty, Qinxie has not seen His Majesty. Even you haven't seen His Majesty, Ning Shu said casually, causing the surrounding concubines to look at Min Zhao-yi with strange gazes. Fu Min felt it, but she didn't show it and didn't say anything. Fu Min really was a woman who knew when to advance and retreat. Ning Shu took back his gaze from Fu Min and then ordered the concubines in the imperial harem to calm down. The emperor needed to rest. Ugh. A concubine covered her mouth, her face pale. Ning Shu's eyes flashed and asked, Xian Fei, what's wrong? Empress, Qinxie feels disgusted. Xian Fei's face was very pale and she looked very haggard. Ning Shu couldn't control the smile on his face. He said to Shi, quickly go find a Tai. There must be something good. Shi quickly had someone call for a Tai. The other concubines also guessed a possibility. They all had looks of jealousy as they twisted their handkerchiefs and stared at Xian Fei's belly. Ning Shu glanced at Fu Min. Fu Min didn't show any jealousy. She just looked sad. Clearly, she thought that this child was Ao Tianze's. Did Ao Tianze not tell Fu Min about this? Perhaps he had waited for the dust to settle before telling Fu Min about it. Are you touched? Fu Min thought. Chapter 1901. Ning Shu's face was filled with joy as he asked Consort Xian, Have you seen a royal doctor? Consort Xian's pale face flushed red as she said, Qinxie hasn't seen a royal doctor. I thought it was because the weather was too hot and my spleen and stomach weren't feeling well. Plus, Qinxie's period has always been messy, so I didn't pay much attention. The weather is so hot. You should find a royal doctor to get some pills to stimulate the appetite and strengthen the spleen, Ning Shu said with a smile. The royal doctor quickly came and took Consort Xian's pulse. Then Ning Shu said, Empress, Consort Xian has been pregnant for a month. That's great. The emperor finally has a child. Ning Shu smiled and said to Consort Xian, From today onwards, you have to take care of the baby. You can't make any mistakes. The child you give birth to is the emperor's eldest son, so there can be no mistakes. From today onwards, I will eat, live, and sleep with you until the child is born. The harem needs a child too much. The emperor isn't young anymore, Ning Shu said casually. Consort Xian was dumbfounded. Then she said, Empress, Qinxie doesn't want to trouble you. Ning Shu waved his hand. From today onwards, the most important matter in the harem is Consort Xian's dragon fetus. Give birth to the dragon fetus at all costs. If anyone tries to reach out, I don't mind cutting them off. Ning Shu's sharp gaze flashed across everyone present. The concubines were all frightened by Ning Shu's sharp gaze. They all bowed and said, Chinchira bays. You can all leave. Consort Xian stay. Ning Shu waved his hand. The concubines all left. Consort Xian rubbed her stomach and looked at Ning Shu with a bit of fear. Extinguish all the incense in the room, Ning Shu said to She immediately used water to extinguish the incense in the incense burner. Then she opened the window. Although I don't know if the incense is harmful, it's better not to light it. In the future, don't light it in your palace, Ning Shu said to Consort Xian. Concubine Xian nodded. I'll remember it. This consort wasn't joking when she said that we would eat and live together. Don't think that I would do anything to you, said Ning Shu. This concubine really doesn't dare to trouble the empress. This concubine is deeply afraid. Concubine Xian's jade nose was dripping with sweat. Don't talk about these useless things. This empress won't do anything to you. On the contrary, this empress wants to protect the child in your belly. Right now, everyone in the court, including the emperor, thinks that this empress is immoral. If you lose your child, do you think this empress will have a good ending? This empress will be frank with you today. You must have this child. Consort Xian bowed. Thank you, concubine, but it's just living and eating together. It's not a big deal. From today onwards, I'll live with you in your palace. Ning Shu said to Shi, just pack some clothes. Yang. Shi was somewhat disapproving. The empress was living in the concubine's palace. Go. After that, Ning Shu moved to concubine Xian's Weiyang palace. He had people carefully inspect everything in Weiyang palace, including some antiques, calligraphy, paintings, jewelry, rouge, and some clothes. He also had the Tan family find a female doctor who knew medicine to enter the palace. He also found a servant girl who knew martial arts. The female doctor and the servant girl who knew martial arts were all there to protect concubine Xian. With Ning Shu, there was a high chance that they could protect the child in concubine Xian's belly. Concubine Xian stared dumbfoundedly at the swift and decisive Ning Shu. In a short period of time, her palace had changed its appearance. Ning Shu tilted his head and followed concubine Xian's instructions. Concubine Xian, don't wear too much makeup when you're pregnant. It's not good for the child and it's easy to fall into a trap. This concubine will listen to the empress. Concubine Xian could only say helplessly. But looking at the empress, it didn't seem like she wanted to harm the child in her belly. The feeling of sharing a bed with the empress at night was wonderful. The empress's hand was placed on her belly and gently stroked it. It really made one's hair stand on end. But before every meal, a female doctor would first check all the dishes, including the bowls and chopsticks. After checking, the empress would eat first and then let her eat. Concubine Xian's current goal was to give birth to the child first. No matter if it was a boy or a girl, it would be the emperor's first child. The emperor would definitely have a special feeling in his heart. Ao Tianzi, who was well-mannered, was instantly furious when he heard that a concubine in the imperial harem was pregnant. Although he had asked someone to serve the empress in his place, she was pregnant now and these concubines still looked happy. Ao Tianzi wanted to chop the pregnant concubine. You know what to do, right? Ao Tianzi looked at the secret guard kneeling in front of him. The secret guard said yes and then said hesitantly, the empress and concubine Xian eat and live together. So what if the empress is pregnant? Let her do it. Ao Tianzi said. It was a good time to do it. The empress brought a female doctor from the Tan family and a servant girl who knows a little martial arts. It's not easy to do it. The secret guard said, every meal will be checked. This empress is really responsible. Ao Tianzi rubbed his forehead and stood up. He was going to Weiyang Palace. Since she was pregnant, he should reward her with something. Ao Tianzi arrived at Weiyang Palace and was welcomed by two women. Ning Shu smiled and said to Ao Tianzi, Your Majesty, concubine Xian is pregnant. After 10 months, she will give birth to a prince. Your Majesty, congratulations. Ning Shu clearly saw Ao Tianzi's eyebrows tremble. Concubine Xian was beaming with joy. She placed her hand on her waist and acted like a pregnant woman. She slightly stuck out her belly and shouted to Ao Tianzi, Your Majesty. Ao Tianzi glanced at concubine Xian's belly. My beloved concubine, you have suffered. These things are bestowed to you by me. Use them well. I hope that my beloved concubine will still be beautiful when you are pregnant. Thank you, Your Majesty. Concubine Xian smiled as she looked at the things that the palace servants were holding. There were rouge, face powder, luxurious jewelry, and some strange and interesting things. Ning Shu narrowed her eyes slightly and said with a smile, Your Majesty, rest assured. Your Majesty, I will definitely protect the dragon fetus and let concubine Xian give birth to a healthy dragon heir. Your Majesty will definitely give sister concubine Xian a happy pregnancy and give birth to a smart child, Ning Shu said without generosity. She even had a joyful expression on her face, as if she was pregnant herself. Thank you, Your Majesty. The Empress has her own pepper palace and doesn't need to live in Weiyang Palace, Ao Tianzi said. Your Majesty, it's not hard at all. As long as sister concubine Xian can give birth to a dragon heir, I will be satisfied. Your Majesty, rest assured. Your Majesty, I will definitely take good care of sister concubine Xian and not let anything happen to her. Ning Shu looked like a patriotic and magnanimous mother of the nation. Ao Tianzi clenched his hand under his long robe and said with relief, You are really my good empress. Ning Shu smiled. Your Majesty, congratulations on being a father. Congratulations on being a father. Chapter 1902. Congratulations, Your Majesty, on becoming a father. Ning Shu smiled warmly and generously. Her eyes sparkled and she looked especially sincere. Zhen thanks Empress. Zhen hopes that this child will be born smoothly and not have any problems like before. Can Empress do that? Ao Tianzi's expression was indifferent. Ning Shu smiled without showing her teeth. Of course, Qinxie can do it. Qinxie will definitely make sure that the child is born smoothly. Don't worry, Your Majesty. Ao Tianzi's mouth twitched. He flicked his sleeve and said, Zhen still has matters to attend to, before leaving. Consort Xian stroked the things that Ao Tianzi sent over. She couldn't stop smiling. She looked incomparably happy as she touched her belly. Ning Shu's expression didn't change. She walked over and looked at the rouge, face powder, jewelry, and clothes. She said gently, Your Majesty is very good to younger sister. When younger sister successfully gives birth to the child, there will definitely be more rewards. Consort Xian's smile became even brighter. She couldn't hide her joy. Thank you, Empress. Put these things away. Ning Shu said to Shi and a few palace maids put away the jewelry on the tray. Consort Xian's face twitched when she saw all these good things being put away. Ning Shu said, Empress, this is what His Majesty bestowed to Qinxie. Qinxie will use it anyway. Thank His Majesty for his kindness. Ning Shu said with a smile, Younger sister, what you need to do now is to give birth to the child safely. You also saw how much His Majesty looks forward to the child in younger sister's belly. When the child is born, don't talk about rouge and face powder. If it's a boy, think about it, this child will be the eldest son. Younger sister, look further. Consort Xian's eyebrows relaxed a little. She seemed to be imagining Ning Shu's words. Then she said, But His Majesty hopes that Qinxie can be beautiful. Younger sister, you are pregnant now. You can't serve him in bed. Even if you are beautiful, even if His Majesty comes to see younger sister, he will just sit for a while. If younger sister is really scared, I will ask the female doctor to prepare skincare products made of dew and flowers. Ning Shu's expression was a little serious. I understand. Concubine Xian bit her lips and said, because she was pregnant, she couldn't help but ask for credit. She felt that she was pregnant and wanted the emperor to see her credit. Sister, rest well. Ning Shu said gently. He left the maid who knew martial arts with concubine Xian and went to the storeroom. The female doctor was checking the things sent by Ao Tianzi. Imperial concubine, this rouge contains red flowers that cool the blood and remove blood stasis. It's not good for the fetus in Imperial concubine Xian's womb. The female doctor Ning Shu said. Ning Shu picked up the rouge box and smelled it. It was very fragrant. Perhaps it was to cover up the ingredients, so it was deliberately fragrant. If Ning Shu was not here, concubine Xian would have used these things. Who would have thought that the emperor would kill his own child? On the surface, the child in concubine Xian's belly was still Ao Tianzi's? If anything happened, she would be the one to take the blame. She, the empress, had been with concubine Xian all the time. It would be easy for her to do something. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone, Ao Tianzi was really playing with fire. Imperial concubine, this is the musk bead. The female doctor gave Ning Shu a bracelet. Ning Shu put it to her nose and smelled it. It was very fragrant. The musk bead was very smooth and looked very delicate. No woman could resist such a magnificent jewel. This is also for abortion, imperial concubine? The female doctor was a little uneasy. She seemed to have discovered something extraordinary. Why were the things sent by the emperor all used for abortion? Ning Shu put down the bracelet and said indifferently, "Just pretend you don't know about this and don't talk too much." "What about the others?" Ning Shu picked up the bracelet and looked at it against the light. Imperial concubine, this bracelet is not easy to do anything to, but the clothes and the sachet have things for abortion. The female doctor said with some fear. Ning Shu touched the clothes and sachet with a smile. What did he mean by, "I hope my beloved concubine will be beautiful when she's pregnant"? Wasn't it just to let concubine Xian use the things he sent over? No one would have thought that the emperor wanted to have an abortion. Without an heir in the harem, it was not good for the stability of the dynasty. Compared to this, Ao Tianzi could not tolerate the birth of a child who was not of royal blood. Ning Shu said, "Put these things away and put them in a place where concubine Xian can't touch them." The female doctor wrapped these things up layer by layer and put them in a box. Then she covered them with other things. In short, she did not want the smell of these things to spread. Ning Shu said to the female doctor, "When concubine Xian gives birth successfully, you can leave the palace." The female doctor knelt down with some fear. Ning Shu begged, "Imperial concubine, please let me go. I promise I won't say anything." It seemed that she knew something important. Was she going to kill her to keep her mouth shut? The female doctor was on tenterhooks. Ning Shu helped her up. "What do you think I will do to you? You are a member of the Tan family. You are here to help. I won't do anything to you." To tell you the truth, the emperor dotes on Min Jiaoyi and does not want any children in the harem. If something happens to this child, the emperor will definitely accuse me of immoral empress and harming the imperial heir. It will also implicate the Tan family. Ning Shu said indifferently. "I understand." The female doctor felt bitter. She knew a lot, but she also knew that she had to keep her mouth shut. Otherwise, she would not even know how she died. "Prepare some things for concubine Xian that will not harm her body." The female doctor Ning Shu said. Concubine Xian treated Ao Tianzi's words as an imperial edict. She was afraid that if she became ugly, Ao Tianzi would despise her. Using beauty to serve people, love will fade. The lives of the women in the harem were like duckweed. They were not controlled at all and were sent to their husbands' families by their fathers. The women in the harem were nothing. The struggle between the imperial powers was only about women. Families were often exterminated. Who would care about how many harem women the emperor killed? Women were more or less objects. The emperor had the right to execute them. How could the emperor be in a relationship with a woman? Min Jiaoyi's halo was great. She could subdue the emperor of a generation and become the envy of all women. Concubine Xian was pregnant. Many concubines came to visit her and gave her things. These things were all kept by Ning Shu. Ning Shu more or less understood what these women were thinking. Children were expendable goods in the harem. Men always wanted to get more women to produce more children. In the end, the more women there were, the fewer children there were. When the concubines in the harem came to visit concubine Xian, they were noisy. Ning Shu chased them away and said that they would come again after the child was born. There was no need for them to come and pay their respects in the future. When everyone saw how concubine Xian was treated, their eyes turned red and their teeth itched. Ning Shu said with a smile, "You all have to quickly get pregnant with the emperor's heir and give birth to the harem." Chapter 1903. Ning Shu said to let the imperial concubines think of a way to get pregnant, so that the harem could have children. She smiled like the Guanyin Bodhisattva. These imperial concubines were anxious. Children were what women in the harem could rely on. Ao Tianzi always went to Fu Min's palace, so these imperial concubines were all full of imagination and stopped him halfway, using all kinds of methods to pull Ao Tianzi to their palace. Now, they all thought of Ao Tianzi as a mating partner, wanting to have children. Today it was a Jiaoyi, tomorrow it was an imperial concubine, and the day after tomorrow it was a noble lady. In short, they changed the pattern. This made Ao Tianzi very irritated. His sweetheart was Fu Min, and these women were jumping up and down, each one of them was like an opera troupe singing for a living. Ao Tianzi found reasons to ground some imperial concubines, so that these women could not jump in front of him. It was really annoying. Ao Tianzi was angry, making the women in the harem keep quiet out of fear. They did not dare to be too presumptuous to pull people, but they all ran to Ning Shu to complain tearfully. "The emperor does not share the reign and do equally. How can we have children?" Ning Shu also got angry. His Majesty came to the imperial harem to relax. "Each of you made His Majesty unhappy. You should reflect on yourselves." His Majesty came to the imperial harem to have fun and relax. How could he allow them to take over? The imperial concubines all twisted their handkerchiefs and let Ning Shu talk to the emperor. Ning Shu would not do such a stupid thing. Whatever Ao Tianzi wanted to do, Ning Shu would not care. Even if he wanted to go to heaven, Ning Shu would virtuously help build a ladder. Those women who thought that they were the empress and had to help persuade the emperor were a bit stupid. Life and death were in the hands of others, and they actually wanted to persuade the emperor to be a good emperor. They felt that their lives were too long. Letting the emperor be a good emperor was what the officials of the previous dynasty should do. Even if Ao Tianzi slept at Fu Min's place every day and did not even go to court, Ning Shu would not say a word. She would not be used by these imperial concubines. The imperial concubines were reprimanded by Ning Shu and could only leave dejectedly. After the imperial concubines left, Consort Xian was a little sad again. "Empress, why didn't His Majesty come to see Qinxia? Is it because he doesn't like Qinxia's child?" Pregnant women liked to think too much and had to control their temper. Their body hormone changes made a pregnant woman's mood was very unstable. Ning, concubine Xian's belly was slightly protruding belly, and said with a smile, "The emperor is busy every day, he will take time to come back to see you. Now, the most important thing is to take care of your body." Pregnant women needed care, but Ao Tianzi, as her husband, wanted to abort the child, let alone visit her. Through her mental strength, Ning Shu discovered that there were 2 children in concubine Xian's womb. Ning Shu couldn't help but grin. Concubine Xian was a little disappointed. In order to protect the 2 children in concubine Xian's womb, Ning Shu had really put in a lot of effort. During this period, there were also some accidents. For example, the amount of pregnancy-nourishing medicine had been increased, and some dishes had been added with extra ingredients. Ning Shu and the female doctor calmly stopped him. Occasionally, when he took imperial concubine Xian for a walk, oil would suddenly appear on the floor, or a dog or cat would suddenly jump out from the flowers. Fortunately, there was a servant girl who knew martial arts. She quickly supported Consort Xian or acted as a cushion for Consort Xian. Concubine Xian was also a woman in the imperial harem. If something like this happened once, it would be fine, but if it happened multiple times, it wouldn't be a coincidence. Concubine Xian was a little frightened. She had said that she didn't want to leave the palace and just wanted to walk around in her own palace. The child in her belly was her life, her support. She didn't know who wanted to harm her. Ning Shu felt that these things should be done by Ao Tianzi. The imperial harem was a tool. The dogs and cats were all raised by the imperial concubines in the imperial harem. If something happened, it would be the responsibility of the imperial harem's concubines. They could even punish these imperial concubines. One less would be one less. During this period of time, Ao Tianze rarely went to the imperial harem. He also didn't show how much he doted on Fu Min. Now was not the time to reveal his cards. Another thing was that Ao Tianze found that his waist was a little sore, and the sequela was that his physical strength was not very good. In the past, he could do it 7 times a night, but now he was a man who could do it in seconds. Ao Tianze found the imperial physician and asked what was going on. The imperial physician said that Ao Tianze had kidney deficiency. He then madly prescribed yang medicine to nourish Ao Tianze's kidney, but the effect was very weak. Ao Tianze's kidney energy kept leaking out. It was like a broken vat. No matter how much water was poured in, there would be holes and the water would keep flowing out. It was useless. Ao Tianze was very irritated. He even rarely went to Fu Min's place. No man could directly say that he was not good in front of the woman he liked. Or his performance was not good enough. It was too damaging to a man's dignity. Ao Tianze nourished his body and nourished it. Occasionally, he would sleep with the women in the imperial harem with the help of the secret guards. In the past, when he was vigorous and powerful, he didn't feel anything when the secret guards slept with his women. But now, it felt different. It made him seem incompetent. It was a little different from his indifferent attitude before. What made Ao Tianze even angrier was that the child in concubine Xian's belly was still fine and was already bulging. That idiot empress actually came over and told him that it was twins in her belly. The imperial physician took the pulse and said that it was twins. Ao Tianze didn't want to hear it at all. The twins were not his children. Ning Shu even praised Ao Tianze for being amazing. He actually made concubine Xian pregnant with twins. Ao Tianze's face darkened. Looking at the happy Ning Shu, he was so angry that his nose trembled. Seeing Ao Tianze's bad expression, Ning Shu asked, "Your Majesty, is it because you're too busy with government affairs that you don't look so good?" Ao Tianze was speechless. "Empress, just take care of the imperial harem. I know what I'm doing." Ao Tianze waved his hand to dismiss Ning Shu. Ning Shu was all smiles. "In 5 months, little sister concubine Xian will be in labor. Can your Majesty go and see little sister concubine Xian? Little sister concubine Xian has been thinking about your Majesty every day. Now the child can move." Ning Shu, who was asking for credit and didn't know how to look at others' expressions, looked at Ao Tianze with a smile. Ao Tianze almost broke the brush in his hand. But as an emperor, he had strong self-control. "Don't you take care of concubine Xian? I'm busy with government affairs. Just take good care of concubine Xian for me." "Okay, this concubine will definitely take good care of little sister concubine Xian and help the imperial harem flourish." Ning Shu was full of joy. Seeing Ning Shu's smile, Ao Tianze's heart panicked. Anyway, he had to get rid of the child early. Giving birth was simply a disgrace. Chapter 1904. Ning Shu walked out of the hall and met an imperial physician carrying a medicine box. He asked, "Is there something wrong with the emperor's body?" The imperial physician simply said, "It's just a daily pulse check." Ning Shu didn't say anything. Ao Tianze rarely entered the harem now. It was said that even if he went to Fu Min's palace, he would have a meal, then have a spiritual exchange, recite poems, look at the stars and moon, and talk about history. Then Ao Tianze would find an excuse to leave, saying that he was busy with government affairs and wouldn't stay the night. Ever since Fu Min entered the palace, Ao Tianze had the secret guard take care of the concubines in his place. He never stayed the night in the concubine's palace. The only one who had the honor of staying the night was Fu Min. Although Fu Min didn't serve him many times, Ao Tianze would stay the night every time. Basically, they would spend the whole night together. 7 times a night wasn't a joke. Now that Ao Tianze didn't stay the night, Fu Min was a little surprised. She asked Ao Tianze, "Emperor, aren't you staying? I've prepared lotus seed soup for you. It's frozen now." Fu Min didn't care about wealth or glory, but she cared about Ao Tianze because of love. Fu Min didn't care about other people's thoughts. She was looking for a soulmate, someone she could talk to, someone she could spiritually understand. Love was selfish and suspicious. Now that Ao Tianzi's attitude towards her had changed, Fu Min felt a little strange. She was worried about personal gains and losses. Could it be that she really fell in love with the emperor? She didn't want to enter the palace before. She didn't want to marry a royal husband. But after spending some time with Ao Tianzi, Fu Min felt that the emperor was handsome and talented. Fu Min slowly began to admire Ao Tianzi, but she also knew that Ao Tianzi didn't belong to her alone. She couldn't help but feel lonely and disappointed. Every time Ao Tianzi went to another concubine, Fu Min felt sad. But Fu Min wouldn't do anything extreme. Even in the harem, Fu Min had to keep her bottom line. She wouldn't take the initiative to harm others. Although there were always some concubines who didn't like her, nothing had happened since she entered the palace. Fu Min still felt that the people outside the imperial palace had described the inside of the imperial palace to be too terrifying. What about killing people? What about the glint of blades and shadows of swords? It was completely exaggerated by those storytellers. Although these women in the harem looked down on her, no one dared to do anything to her. Moreover, she had Ao Tianzi's protection, so she had never suffered in the palace. "Your Majesty, please stay and drink some lotus seed soup." Seeing Fu Min's expression, Ao Tianzi felt a little uncomfortable. Her eyes were full of hope that he would stay. However, if he stayed, he would have to have sex with her. The problem was that he couldn't hold on for long in his current condition. It was related to his dignity as a man. "I've been busy with government affairs recently, so I won't be accompanying you. Rest early." Ao Tianzi looked at Fu Min gently. His gaze made Fu Min blush. She felt shy and happy. "Your Majesty, please take care of your body. No matter how busy you are, you must take care of your body. Xinxia's heart has always been by your Majesty's side." Fu Min said shyly. Ao Tianzi kissed Fu Min's forehead, touched Fu Min's face, and then left. Fu Min looked at Ao Tianzi. When Ao Tianzi turned around, he could see Fu Min leaning against the door, looking at him with infatuation. Her gaze seemed to pass through thousands of mountains and rivers, making Ao Tianzi's heart beat fast. He felt that his life had become lively. In Fu Min's eyes, he was just a man without any additional identity. He was just the man that Fu Min loved. Unlike the other women in the harem, they all came for his identity. They seemed to love him very much, but what they loved was his identity as the emperor. If another person was the emperor, they would still say that they loved him very much. Ao Tianzi turned around and walked in front of Fu Min. Fu Min looked at him with some surprise. "Your Majesty? Go in. The dew is heavy at night. How can you bear to let me go like this?" Ao Tianzi sighed. "I don't know what to do with you." Fu Min hugged Ao Tianzi's waist. "Xinxia also doesn't know what to do with your Majesty. Take me and I'll stay." Then Ao Tianzi hugged Fu Min. The two chatted, whispering sweet nothings. Although they didn't have sex, Fu Min was very satisfied. At least Ao Tianzi didn't use her as a tool to vent his lust. She was different from the women in the harem. Women cared more about feelings and atmosphere. Ao Tianzi hurriedly found an imperial physician to help him think of a solution. He couldn't keep using this method of just chatting with the quilt. But he was now a man in seconds. Ning Shu did his best to take care of Consort Xian. Came to Ning Shu's ear and told him about Min Jiaoyi and the harem. Ning Shu's expression was calm as he asked, "How did Min Jiaoyi react today?" According to Ao Tianzi's body, he should be like a pewter spear now. Sleeping for a night without doing anything? "Nyang Nyang, I heard from Xiao He that Min Jiaoyi Nyang was quite happy." Shir said. "Nyang Nyang, why didn't His Majesty come to see Consort Xian Nyang Nyang? His own consort was pregnant and didn't come for several months." Ning Shu only smiled and didn't say anything. She nagged, and in the end, Ao Tianzi really came. Consort Xian was overjoyed because she was pregnant with twins. She was 4 months pregnant, but her belly was bigger than other people's 6 months pregnant. Consort Xian propped up her belly and bowed to Ao Tianzi. Ao Tianzi glanced at Consort Xian's belly and didn't reach out to help a pregnant woman. He only said indifferently, "Get up." Ning Shu reached out to help Consort Xian up. Ao Tianzi picked up the teacup and took a sip of tea. Then he carefully looked at Consort Xian's face, which made Consort Xian feel baffled. "Your Majesty, is there something on this concubine's face?" Consort Xian touched her face and asked Ao Tianzi. Could it be that there was something dirty on her face? "It's been hard on my beloved consort. I heard that when a woman is pregnant, there will be freckles on her face." "Beloved consort, didn't you use the things that we gave you? Why are you so haggard?" Ao Tianzi shook his head and said, "Being called ugly by a man," Consort Xian immediately covered her face. Tears welled up in her eyes and she was so anxious that her face turned red. Ning Shu bowed and said, "Your Majesty, because Consort Xian is pregnant, she doesn't touch those things much. Right now, Consort Xian's thoughts are on the children in her belly, so it's inevitable that she neglects herself." To be honest, Consort Xian wasn't ugly. What was fat was her belly, and there weren't any freckles on her face. She was already very beautiful. It was just that she didn't have any makeup on her face, so her complexion didn't look so good. However, she was still a beautiful pregnant woman. "The rouge and face powder that we gave you are the best." Ao Tianzi said, "Apply some when you're free. It looks good and your complexion is also very good." Ao Tianzi only needed to look at her bulging belly to feel the anger in his heart. Chapter 1905. Ning Shu saw Imperial Concubine Xian's sad face. Because she was pregnant, she was called ugly by a man and asked if it was torture. Torture? She hadn't seen the emperor for a few months and he called her ugly. Imperial Concubine Xian held back her tears. "This concubine has been impolite." Imperial Concubine Xian bowed and held her stomach. She was called ugly and she had to apologize. "Ask if it was torture." "Torture? This emperor will come to see you after some time. I hope that my beloved concubine won't be so haggard next time." Ao Tianzi left with his hands behind his back. "This concubine respectfully sends off the emperor." Ning Shu bowed and looked at Ao Tianzi's back. Ao Tianzi purposely came to find trouble and made Imperial Concubine Xian use the things he sent over. Ao Tianzi really didn't give up on destroying the baby. Once Ao Tianzi left, Imperial Concubine Xian sat down and cried on the table. She cried until her body trembled. However, she cried softly and didn't dare to cry loudly. It wasn't nice to hear. Otherwise, Ao Tianzi would be unhappy again. Ning Shu only looked at Imperial Concubine Xian crying and didn't comfort her. She would feel better after crying enough. It was better to keep it in her heart. However, when Imperial Concubine Xian cried, the baby in her stomach was in pain. Imperial Concubine Xian immediately stopped crying and said to Ning Shu in panic, "Your Highness, this concubine's stomach hurts a little." The female doctor quickly took Imperial Concubine Xian's pulse and said, "Your Highness, you can't think too much. If your emotions fluctuate too much, it will affect the baby." "Is my baby okay?" Imperial Concubine Xian asked with lingering fear. Seeing Ning Shu leisurely drinking tea, she said anxiously, "Your Highness, what should this concubine do?" "What do you mean, what should you do? Did something happen?" Ning Shu said indifferently. "Your Highness, the emperor dislikes this concubine. What if the child hates this concubine's child because of this concubine? What should I do?" Imperial Concubine Xian felt that Ao Tianzi didn't like the child in her stomach. "This child is your child. He will be your support in the future and also a companion. What you need to do now is to give birth to the child and not worry about such things. No matter what, this child is the emperor's blood." Ning Shu said indifferently. Consort Xian was slightly relieved and touched her face again. Ning Shu asked, "Didn't the emperor bestow me with rouge and face powder? I want to apply rouge." The female doctor looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu put down his teacup and said to Imperial Concubine Xian, "I don't agree with you applying these things, but if you want to do it, then do it. Besides, this is the grace of the emperor." Ning Shu nodded at the female doctor. The female doctor took out the rouge box from the box and said, "Concubine Xian, this is the rouge that I copied from the emperor." After concubine Xian gives birth, wouldn't it be better to use the rouge and face powder that the emperor bestowed to you? This. Concubine Xian frowned. She felt that she was being controlled by the empress. She had no freedom at all. She even had to control what she applied. This can whiten and nourish one's complexion, making one's skin smooth and supple. Your Highness can give it a try. The female doctor said. I thank the empress for her grace. Consort Xian said reluctantly. She looked a little unhappy. Ning Shu smiled faintly and said, Don't be anxious. Use as much rouge and face powder as you can. There are still a few months before the child is born. Use this to nourish your skin first. When the time comes, apply the emperor's rouge and face powder. You will be even more beautiful. Consort Xian was a little tired. The palace maids helped her to sleep. Ning Shu inserted a little bit of spiritual energy into Consort Xian's belly and released his spiritual energy. Through the belly, he saw the fetus in the belly. The two children were squeezed in the same womb. And it was a boy and a girl. They were like dragons and phoenixes. Other than taking care of a pregnant woman, Ning Shu also had to find ways to find out about Ao Tianzi's situation from various channels. They said that they were husband and wife, but she didn't know anything about Ao Tianzi's situation. She found out that Ao Tianzi often hired imperial physicians. She didn't know if there was a problem with his body. That's right. Ning Shu thought that he had lost his aim. Empress, every time the imperial physicians come out of the emperor's palace, they don't look very good. They must have encountered some difficulties. Could it be that the emperor? She didn't dare to say it out loud. Ning Shu massaged the acupoints on her hand and said slowly, The emperor is still so young and full of energy. What could happen to him? Ning Shu was very confident in Ao Tianzi. She frowned. She was young and worried. In a situation like Ao Tianzi's, it was hard to guarantee that he wouldn't do something unconventional. For example, it was not impossible to take some medicinal pills to help with sex. The main thing was that someone brought these things to Ao Tianzi and let him know of their existence. Men were strange creatures. Even if they knew that these things might overdraft their bodies, they would still eat and enjoy pleasure in order to stand up on their 3 legs. It was probably also for the desire to conquer. Ning Shu supported her chin. How could Ao Tianzi be obsessed with these things? She believed that the Imperial Academy of Medicine had such things. Generally speaking, the emperor's body needed to be nourished and not used harmful medicine to overdraft his body. Especially medicinal pills. Medicinal pills were mixed with women's menstrual blood, cinnabar, and mercury into a lump of mud ball. After eating it, one would be full of energy. There was no lack of people in this world who wanted to be obedient and take shortcuts. Ning Shu blinked and continued to take care of concubine Xian until she gave birth to the children. Concubine Xian's belly was getting bigger and bigger. The 2 children in her belly couldn't bear it. Ao Tianzi didn't know if it was because he was guilty or to cover it up, but he let the secret guards visit the concubines more often. It gave people the feeling that the emperor was full of energy. The emperor was great. Every time these concubines went to bed, there would be a nanny with a bowl of medicine for them to drink. Ao Tianzi didn't want something like concubine Xian to happen again. Now that the seed was in the belly, it couldn't be dropped. Now the empress stayed by concubine Xian's side all day and failed several times. Fu Min didn't know that the person who visited the concubines wasn't Ao Tianzi. Seeing that Ao Tianzi visited the other concubines but didn't come to her, Fu Min felt a little sad. She felt that Ao Tianzi was tired of her. Fu Min couldn't compete for the emperor's favor. She stayed in her palace and waited for Ao Tianzi to come. Ao Tianzi also felt bitter in his heart. If he suddenly stopped visiting the harem, wouldn't it make people suspect that there was something wrong with his body? However, every time he went to Fu Min Bar, he had to do it personally. Now, Ao Tianzi's heart was strong, but his body was weak. And every time he went to see Fu Min, wouldn't it put Fu Min in the teeth of the storm? Although Ao Tianzi treated other women coldly, as if looking at a pile of dog shit, he considered all aspects when it came to Fu Min 39/39163/L. Chapter 1906. 1 Second Little Shawnette. Org. A wonderful novel for free. Ao Tianza had been asking the secret guards to visit the concubines, but the frequency was very low. There might only be 1 or 2 concubines a month. Ao Tianza probably didn't feel good seeing the secret guards visit his concubines, especially since he didn't seem to be able to do it. Ning Shu had to take care of concubine Xian and lived in her palace, so Ao Tianza didn't go to Ning Shu's pepper palace on the 1st and 15th of every month. Not to mention being visited by the secret guards. Ning Shu really didn't know what to do with the concubines. If he told them that they didn't want to sleep with him, they might hate him. What did the Empress mean? Was she jealous that they could sleep with him? But Ning Shu couldn't tell the truth. It would be bad if he knew. So, even if he had to save himself, he had to kill Ao Tianza. Since there were secret guards to serve him, he would enjoy it. Concubine Xian's belly was getting bigger and bigger, and she was applying more and more powder on her face. It seemed that pregnancy spots appeared on her face, making her feel like she was facing a great enemy. She was already disliked by the emperor. Now that she really had spots, concubine Xian was under a lot of pressure. She kept saying how ugly she was all day. Ning Shu just looked and didn't say anything. How could a pregnant woman be as beautiful as a flower? How could it be possible that she was devastatingly beautiful? The hormone changes in a woman's body would always change a little, especially since concubine Xian was pregnant with twins. Her belly was very big. When she gave birth, her belly might become dry orange peel. Concubine Xian would go crazy then. Ning Shu rubbed her forehead. She was always looking at herself in the mirror. Ao Tianza didn't come, what was there to be afraid of? Ning Shu was too lazy to persuade her. She was very busy. No matter how much she said, it was not as useful as Ao Tianza saying, "You are very beautiful." Fortunately, the baby in her belly was healthy. Ning Shu asked did you send the message I asked you to send back to the Tan family? She said, I did. Ning Shu nodded. She was a virtuous wife, so she had to help her husband solve his problems. Not long after, a sage-like old Taoist entered the palace. This old Taoist was sent to the palace by a minor official. This minor official had always been obsessed with alchemy and the art of immortality, unable to extricate himself. By chance, he heard that the emperor had a problem with his health, so he wanted to use an unconventional method to please Ao Tianza and sent the Taoist priest into the palace. Of course, before sending the pills into the palace, he also bribed Ao Tianza's eunuch to deliver the pills to Ao Tianza. As a young and impetuous emperor, Ao Tianza certainly did not believe in these things. He did not have the same desire for life as the old emperor, so he did not touch these things at all. Of course, in the end, Ao Tianza still decided to use it because he wanted to see Fu Min. Seeing Fu Min's disappointed expression, Ao Tianza couldn't take it. Fu Min was sad and disappointed. She asked Ao Tianza, "Your Majesty, are you tired of this concubine?" Ao Tianza hugged Fu Min. He couldn't bear to see such an expression on Fu Min's face. This girl should have a scholarly temperament and was calm and at ease. After doing something that made his sweetheart sad, Ao Tianza gritted his teeth and ate the elixir. To Ao Tianza's surprise, his body seemed to be assisted by God. He felt that his whole body was alive again, and that part of his body was incomparably powerful. This gave Ao Tianza a great sense of satisfaction. A man did not need to show his strength by hunting. This was the way to show his strength. Ao Tianza felt that his body was dripping with carefree, as if he was assisted by God. There was an inexhaustible power in his body. Holding Fu Min and looking at his beloved under his body, the pleasure of conquering and the melancholy from before disappeared. It made Ao Tianza feel like he was floating. The effect could not be better. With such a perfect experience, Ao Tianza called the sage-like old Taoist to the palace to refine pills for Ao Tianza. This old Taoist was a little interesting. He had white hair and a ruddy complexion. He looked old, but there were no wrinkles on his face. His face was ruddy, and it was obvious that he was a Taoist with high cultivation. The old Taoist also told Ao Tianza that the elixir not only made Ao Tianza energetic, but also could prolong his life. It was a good thing. The reason why he was so beautiful and young was because of the elixir. Ao Tianze was skeptical about the effect of the elixir, but it was true that it could make him energetic. He even opened up a palace for the old Taoist to refine the elixir. Ao Tianze also rewarded the low-ranking official. The old officials in the imperial court frowned. What was wrong with rewarding a low-ranking official for no reason, and even giving him the title of a fourth-rank official? This low-ranking official was originally a local official, but now he was transferred to the capital. First, he did not have any outstanding achievements. Second, he was not a disciple of an important official in the imperial court. What was going on? Therefore, some people objected. Ao Tianze did not care about the objections in the imperial court. The more they objected, the more uncomfortable Ao Tianze felt. I am the emperor. Can't I give a low-ranking official? This emperor was really a coward. Ao Tianze had the great tonic pill, so he went to Fu Min's place more often. Every time he went, he would take a great tonic pill. Ao Tianze was now only helping Fu Min. The women in the imperial harem were already dirty. Chapter 1907. 1 second, Little Shua Org. A wonderful novel for free. Ao Tianze was addicted to pills and cared less about the women in the harem. Only Fu Min could catch his eye. The imperial physician took Ao Tianze's pulse and advised him to eat less pills, saying that pills were harmful to his body and would drain his vitality. These words immediately made the old Taoist unhappy. Don't compare this Taoist's pills with those half-baked refiners. This Taoist's pills can prolong one's life. Ao Tianze took supplements prescribed by the imperial physician in addition to pills. He rarely took pills unless he was having sex with Fu Min. Ao Tianze was clear-headed and knew that taking too many pills was not good for his body. After taking the pills and the medicine prescribed by the imperial physician to nourish the kidneys, there weren't many problems with his body. Just like that, Ao Tianze's troubles were completely gone and he began to rectify the matters in the imperial court. However, there was a side effect of taking pills, which was that he could not control his temper sometimes. In addition, the imperial physician prescribed nourishing medicine to prevent Ao Tianze from damaging his body after taking pills. Ao Tianze's body was like being roasted over a fire, so it was normal for him to have a bad temper. Sometimes, when he encountered something unpleasant in the imperial court, the old Ao Tianze might have clenched his fists and endured it. He would endure these bastards until he had his own people in the imperial court. Moreover, these old officials objected out of consideration for their family's interests and said that they were benevolent and righteous, which made Ao Tianze furious. Sometimes, Ao Tianze would fling his sleeves and leave in the middle of the imperial court, leaving a group of officials who did not know whether to stay or leave. Usually, when Ao Tianze was wronged in the imperial court, he would look for Fu Min. Only when he was with Fu Min would he be able to relax for a short while. Watching Fu Min quietly read was a form of enjoyment. Fu Min was different from those vulgar women in the harem. She was not vain and was a woman of substance. Sometimes, Fu Min would say something nice to comfort Ao Tianze. Ao Tianze said that he was a coward as the emperor. When the previous emperor suddenly passed away, he rushed to the throne and there were very few people in the imperial court. Then, Fu Min would say that Ao Tianze was hiding and waiting for the right opportunity. Then Ao Tianze would be able to soar into the sky. Fu Min wasn't an unreasonable person. Even if she didn't use her beauty to serve people, she would be careful when she fell in love with someone, taking care of the other party's feelings. Fu Min was now encouraging the man she loved. Ao Tianze grabbed Fu Min's hand. With a wife like this, what more can a husband ask for? Fu Min's expression was a little bashful and a little disappointed. Emperor, Chinchia is not your wife. Your wife is the empress. You can't say that in the future. In my heart, you are my only wife. In the future, I will make you the empress and make you the mother of a nation, Ao Tianze promised Fu Min. As long as Ao Tianze thought that his beloved was a concubine, another woman was flaunting her power in the position of empress, and his beloved had to bow to the other woman and be a concubine, Tianzi felt very uncomfortable in his heart. She hated the woman sitting in the empress's seat. Qinxie doesn't care about these things. I only hope to be able to accompany your majesty. Qinxie will be satisfied. Fu Min shook her head and said, the empress's position is related to the foundation of a nation. Your majesty can't say it so casually, lest others hear it and make an issue of it. You are too kind. Fu Min didn't want anything. Tianzi felt very uneasy. He didn't know what to use to tie Fu Min down. Instead, he wanted to give all the good things to Fu Min. Qinxie is not kind. Qinxie also has selfish motives. When Qinxie saw you go to other concubines, Qinxie felt sad and sour in her heart. Fu Min said. Fu Min's truth didn't anger Tianzi. Instead, it made Tianzi burst with joy. He felt that Fu Min cared about him and was jealous. Don't worry. I definitely won't let you down. Tianzi held Fu Min's hand. I will definitely fulfill your heart's desire. Tianzi knew what Fu Min was thinking. She wanted to be with him for the rest of her life. The time wasn't right yet, so he wouldn't tell Fu Min. Fu Min only forced a smile. Her wish couldn't be fulfilled in this lifetime. Men all had multiple wives and concubines. Under reasonable and legal circumstances, it was considered disgraceful to ask a man to stay with her alone. Moreover, Tianzi was the emperor. Tianzi kissed Fu Min's forehead and pulled her into his arms. Silly girl, I will definitely fulfill your wish. What he had to deal with now was the child in concubine Xian's belly. He couldn't let the child be born safely. He heard that the empress had already started looking for midwives. His harem could only have Fu Min's child, and that child wasn't his. Ning Shu checked the midwives. Concubine Xian sat on the chair with her hands on her waist. Concubine Xian's belly was abnormally big. Soon she would give birth. Concubine Xian looked at the 4 midwives and said, this concubine will have to trouble you to give birth. The 4 midwives looked very honest and nimble. They said in unison, this servant doesn't dare. We will do our best. Concubine Xian stood up with some difficulty. Her hands and feet were a little swollen. When she had cramps in bed at night, Ning Shu had to get up to massage her. Of course, it was very difficult. She almost ran to the gates of hell several times. Concubine Xian also realized that there was someone in the harem who didn't want her child to be born. She looked at everyone as the murderer. Sometimes she suspected Ning Shu. But seeing that Ning Shu was very dedicated to her, she still relied on the empress to get through many times. Concubine Xian trembled with fear. It would be better if the child was born. There were many dangers after the child was born. If she wasn't careful, he would die. The closer she was to giving birth, the more panic she felt. Moreover, the emperor didn't come to see her at all. In any case, she was pregnant with a dragon child. Why did she feel so despised? Ning Shu looked at concubine Xian, who was anxiously waiting. He took a sip of tea and said, wait patiently for the birth. As long as you give birth to a dragon child, your future will be limitless. Ning Shu whispered to concubine Xian. This consort secretly asked the imperial physician. You might be pregnant with a dragon and a phoenix. Dragon and phoenix are auspicious. Really? Concubine Xian's eyes lit up. It's really a dragon and a phoenix? Of course, it was the gynecologist imperial physician Zhu who took your pulse. It's most likely true. So, don't think too much. Take care of your body and give birth. Ning Shu said calmly. At that time, this consort will give birth with you. Ning Shu put down the teacup. Concubine Xian frowned. A pregnant woman would think more. Now, a terrible thought appeared in concubine Xian's mind. That was, the empress wanted to kill her and take her child. Otherwise, why would she be so attentive to her and think of every possible way for the child in her belly? Thailand's bust-to-female anchor's new erotic video has been exposed. Pouncing on the male lead, I'm so hungry. Please follow the official WeChat account and watch the video online. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.